Meeting to order, meeting of the regular meeting of the City Council, City of Pearland, Texas, for Monday, November the 23rd, 2020 at 6:47 p.m. Apologize for being a little bit tardy as we had a special meeting ahead of this one. So with that, I am called on Councilmember Tony Carbone to lead us in an invocation, and Councilmember Gary Moore to handle our pledges tonight.
All right, if y'all would bow with me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for another day. Thank you for all the blessings you bestowed on us. Keep everybody safe, healthy, as we celebrate Thanksgiving. Keep everybody protected, especially those that are serving overseas and here that are at the drop of a call to serve and protect us here locally. Be with the deliberations tonight. Let everything that we do and say be honoring and pleasing to you. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
If you would, please join me in the pledge to our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of
the United States of America,
the United States of America, and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now our state flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, gentlemen, for leading us in that, and we'll move on to roll call and certification of a quorum. I can certify that we do have a quorum present. Looks like we have currently absent from the meeting is Councilmember Owens, and Councilmember Hernandez will not be with us tonight as he has a family issues to deal with, and so keep him and his family in your prayers. Next will be item number 4, citizens' comments. So with that, Councilmember Little, would you tell us who's on tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll call your name in the order in which I received them. Please state your name and address before you start speaking. You should have a clock on your screen. Limit your talk to 3 minutes, and I'll wrap you up. I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining. First up, Jimmy Davis on utility billing.
Councilman Little, I signed up to speak on behalf of the Pearland Waterborne Discussion Group. Can I be afforded the 5 minutes?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Jimmy Davis, 5004 Combsville Street, Pearland. Honorable Mayor and Councilman, let me start by saying I appreciate all the work that Nancy Massey has put into the utility billing packet. I think Ms. Massey has some really good ideas that just need a little fine tuning. I'm glad to see that it's being realized that it's not right to charge residents several months of water on a single tier established for 32 days of consumption. I think the city has a responsibility to look at residents that moved down the last 2 years. If the final bill was for more days than the tier is for, they owe those people money back. I'd be happy to speak with the city on how to make that happen if they desire. This may qualify to file an errors and omissions claim. I have to ask why the city feels it's appropriate to charge multiple sewer fees when the base water and trash fees are not being charged. Sewer is a flat monthly charge, and there should be a single sewer on their final bill. And within the packet, I couldn't help but notice all the challenges and manual processes that staff has to undertake because of the 3230 plan and the several months gap. This wouldn't be necessary if we started operating in accordance with industry standards right away. However, staff wants to operate outside industry standards for more than 2 additional years. What city provides their own water service and operates outside industry standards for several years to fix a problem caused by them deviating from industry standards to begin with? The right thing to do is to say that we start that next month. However, short of this council not doing that, You have been provided, and I'd be happy to speak with staff about a roadmap that gets us there no later than April, and we're all caught up. I believe the residents have a right to have the city water department operate within industry standards, but if I can't have it next month, I will take a few months over several years. Council, I thought about the resident who the city said their meter indicated for 2.5 months that she was using more than 1 million gallons of water every 28 days. At first, the city wanted her to pay for all the water, but they eventually gave her a credit. I thought about the resident who got a high bill and contacted the city, and the ensuing investigation uncovered that for 2 months, their meter reported no consumption. She got a credit, no meter testing required. I thought about the couple that their meter recorded no water consumption for 40 straight hours on the weekend that their daughter had a sleepover. Their meter was tested, came back fine, city still gave them credit. And most recently, a couple that got a high water bill requested a meter profile, and when they got it, it showed positive as well as negative consumption. When they questioned the negative consumption, the official city response was their meter was installed backwards on April 2nd. All the negative consumption was actually positive. There's no mention of the positive consumption, though, which if the meter was installed backwards would actually be negative. City notified them on November 20th that they changed the meter on November 9th and were giving them a credit. No testing required. The meter that was allegedly installed backwards since April 2nd and produced months of very high bills before the negative consumption data was clearly not operating properly. You can't have positive and negative. And finally, I think about all the residents who get a crazy bill 1 or 2 months. The city says your meter's right, pay your bill. For each of the residents mentioned previously that got credits, there are several in this category that get nothing but a pay your bill. I think about how they say they feel so helpless. After all, it's not like they can change water companies. City has a monopoly. And if you don't pay it, no matter how unreasonable it is, they shut your water off. If these people that got credits had meters that didn't properly record water consumption, how many of the other residents that are being denied and forced to pay outrageous water bills have meters with intermittent addition? This is a question that can't be answered. So how many people have to suffer financial harm? I ask you, Mayor and Council, to set up town halls for January and February, to put them on the water bills so residents know they're happening and hear from these people. I ask you to give residents a voice by establishing an oversight board or committee. A board or committee that can take these resident complaints, look into them, and report to you what they find. A good, independent resident voice. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, next up on the list is Robert Eli. Mr. Eli, are you fine?
Yes, yeah, I just got unmuted. Thank you very much. Forgive me, this is my first time being involved in one of these meetings, so being the council, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak here, and I'll try to keep it short because I'm sure.
Be sure to state your name and address. If I didn't hear it already, you were having some audio issues.
It's Robert Ely. My address is 3210 Windy Bank Lane in Pearland. I'm just kind of getting involved with this whole water billing issue. My wife normally pays that bill, and she's the one who's been complaining to me. I went last Friday to the office, and they couldn't really tell me how much I owed or how long it's going to take to pay what the city thinks I owe, other than they're billing me 2 extra days per cycle to make up for being 2 months in arrears in billing, which is going to take quite some time to make up. I would like the opportunity, but it's disappointing. But for those of us who can get that number and just pay it and become current, might be a whole lot easier for us and more easy to swallow if we could do that, as opposed to, well, I don't know how much you owe, and I don't know how long we're going to keep billing you extra every month. I don't know if there's been an outside research on this issue. Like I said, I'm just getting involved, and I know I've read things from people in my neighborhood, which is Lakes of Highland Glen, saying that they've been told their meters were installed backwards, their meters weren't reading correctly. I'm kind of frustrated that the city can't really tell me what's going on. And again, maybe I've missed that somewhere since I'm just getting involved. I really just wanted to get in here and have a chance to say what's on my mind about it, and hopefully the city has a plan to be able to be transparent about this with all of the homeowners, make sure that people aren't either currently or continuing to be charged or overcharged for water service and water usage. I know there's an item in this meeting as well, so being able to listen and see what kind of information we get disseminated out to us from the city here tonight. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and hopefully we can all work together and get it squared away and straightened out.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Denise Hewitt.
Hi, my name is Denise Hewitt. I live at 3404 Blue Spruce Trail, 77581. Welcome, Mayor Cole. Good evening, council and staff. You'll never convince me that the water billing debacle started as anything other than a sneaky way to grab additional funding from unsuspecting water customers. The idea of billing 13 times in a 12-month period is pure and simple pickpocketing scheme. For best estimates, it'll increase the enterprise fund approximately $5 million a year. However, all things that work in the dark eventually come to the light, and it did just that with the distribution of 2 bills in 1 month of February 2020. The proverbial saying, all hell broke loose, is an understatement. In February council meetings, the city manager stood in front of council and Pearland citizens and stated, quote, in the spirit of full transparency, unquote, an explanation would be given. A councilman passionately explained that a rogue employee made the change without authorization. The deputy mayor presented a plan to get us back on track with a growing deficit. We still don't know what the deficit is. Is it 6, 8, 12 million? Oh, wait, it wasn't a rogue employee. It was revealed in the Olson investigation that the city manager instructed the change and charged departmental employees to make the change. When the city manager talked about full transparency, he never once shared that this was done at his instruction. He has never once owned the responsibility publicly. He has never admitted his part in this whole debacle. When Public Information Act requests are submitted to the city for documents, on a large portion of the request, the city legal team seeks the state attorney general's permission to withhold information. The city's public information officer executive, who's responsible, is the city manager. Financial reports are denied. City communications on water billing are denied. City council meetings, the meetings, agendas, and videos are removed from public sites. What are they hiding? September 2019, the city manager advised city council that August 2019 was a wet month and a rate increase was needed to correct the deficit. Based on this explanation, council approved the increase effective October 19th. Oh wait, August wasn't a wet month. Council was lied to by the city manager. It was the implementation flaw of a 2 to 3 day unbilled water each month that caused the deficit, and the explanation of a wet month was a cover-up. The 28-day billing scheme was not approved by council. It was not documented as a procedural change, and it did not receive council approval prior to its unauthorized implementation. All of this was done by the city manager, who really is the rogue employee. Is this unapproved procedure implemented? Was it illegal, unethical, or both? I'm demanding that council stand up tonight, take a motion to suspend the 3230 plan, take us back to the original billing cycles, and stop picking our pockets. We, the citizens of Pearland, deserve honesty, integrity, and your best effort in our best interest, not the hiding and denial of information, not the lying to council, not council deferring to the city manager or staff who's proven time and time again in this debacle to be untrustworthy. Council, the citizens you represent deserve better. Stop picking our pockets. Make your first step by reverting back to our old meter reading cycle and billing methodology as soon as humanly possible. You need to right the ship. Then we can begin talking about the installation of the well-known, documented, faulty Itron Badger meters and billing system issues, which is a debacle in itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Felicia Harris-Haas. Are you online, Ms. Haas? Joshua, would you?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, sorry. First of all, congratulations, Mr. Mayor, on your first council meeting. Good to see you.
Don't forget your name and address, please.
Felicia Harris House, 3112 Sumac, 77584.
Okay, thank you.
Tonight I stand to speak on principle. Imagine it's a Friday morning during early voting and a council candidate unexpectedly calls. His opening remarks are so concerning you rise from your desk, locate a recorder, and turn it on to capture the end of his opening statement.
And so this is not just about me. This is about what we want to go as a county and what we want to go as a region. And so anybody who's aiding and abetting these people will be on my radar and they will pay.
A lengthy call follows, during which you learn that he is speaking on behalf of a group and that you are among those, quote, on his radar, close quote, he said would pay unless you do as he demands.
And so whether it's right or wrong, I construe you as giving aid to this person.
Well,
And that I do not forgive.
why are you attacking me?
Because you know what, Felicia, you pretend to be a lot of things. And the reality of the situation is you would get a lot more respect from me and others if you just did the right thing.
What is the right
I'm going to go
thing?
spin a story for the next 6 months, and you're going to get to be the main character. And you get to decide, do you want that to be your case or not? So we're not asking you to name check anybody.
Who's we? I'm talking to one person.
Campaign. I think not thinking we. Every time I go talk about the campaign, I always use we. My emotions are up, my emotions are down now. I'm going to be looking on the Bricks and Gravy website in 72 hours. If I don't hear or see something that in any way condemns these kind of tactics, I'm going to know where you stand. And it may be a different place than where I stand, and I'm not going to let that just be. So just understand, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That's physics.
Then imagine listening to the recording and hearing a second voice coaching the candidate in real time.
I didn't say we're going to attack you. I said we're going to muddy the waters.
I don't know what that means.
You're going to muddy the waters.
These are portions of a call I received on October 16th. As you know, the call concerned me and I was encouraged to notify the police. I made one and only one call to the police during which I was assured of the department's professionalism. Imagine a neighbor sending you the recording of the discussion he had with the council candidate after November 3rd. And on that recording, hearing the candidate falsely attack your character and reputation and tell your neighbor that the police's objectivity was compromised in his favor from the outset.
I literally called the police 3 days later, and they're like, we didn't even worry about her. So we know her for years. We don't even worry about her. We assumed as soon as she called us that actually you were in the way.
Excuse the audio quality, but consider the optics of an audacious council candidate giving a black eye to the police's professional reputation, claiming that as soon as a resident called, the police assumed the candidate was in the right and didn't even worry about the resident. No council candidate should ever suggest that our police department gives candidates or office holders preferential treatment. Principles matter in leadership. I seriously doubt the Pearland Police Department, this council, or any local leader would condone this kind of conduct by any candidate, regardless of political affiliation or friendship. And so, as a concerned voter and private citizen, I share this information with you.
Okay, the time's up. Thank you very much. Next up, Joseph Yao. Are you online, Mr. Yao?
Yes, I am.
Okay, state your name and address, please, and you can go ahead.
Good thing. My name is Joseph Yao. I live at 4023 Crystal Lake Circle South in Pearland, Texas. I first want to say happy Thanksgiving to David, Gary, Trent, the other city council members, and to you, Mr. Mayor. I did not expect to be spending my Thanksgiving week at a city council meeting. But I do first want to say I'm going to talk about the Hughes Ranch Road expansion, which is appreciated and is necessary for our Crystal Lake community, as well as for the city of Pearland. I was surprised, and I guess it was brought to my attention, by, for me, the lack of regard for the residents that live on Hughes Ranch Road, when on November 12th, 2020, the City News said that on 11/21, all westbound lanes on Hughes Ranch Road would be closed for reconstruction until further notice. Now, we've been living through it for the last year and a half, and what surprises me is that it would just be until further notice. Now, I do appreciate that there was an update that was made, and I know that was done on behest of some of the city council members to have this looked at. But when I saw that, to me, the question I have is, was that acceptable to the contractor to close it till further notice indefinitely, to the city council, and to even Pearland residents? Now, my community, we appreciated the update and that you're having it open, but now you've come up with an alternative plan which required some pressure on our side. You know, what does approximately 6 months mean? And I also have a question, you know, is there a penalty to the contractor for this running so long and for it not looking like there's an end in sight? So I appreciate your time and listening to this, but now I have to be present of mind because my boss, my wife, is now making it my job to stay on top of this. So I appreciate, as long as that there's some regard held for those who live on Hughes Ranch Road when these decisions are made, and that they're at least discussed or at least thought of as if the contractor lived on our road or as if the city council lived on our road. So I appreciate your time. Thank you. And again, happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Mr. Yao. Happy Thanksgiving to you also. Mayor, that completes citizen comments.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Little, for that. Thank you for the citizens and your comments, and you're willing to participate tonight. Real quick question before we move forward. Mr. Pearson, does staff have Mr. Yao's contact information to stay in contact with him and provide updates?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I believe we tried to make outreach when we understood his question, so I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure that we're in contact with the Crystal Lake community as that project is still under construction. And just for the record, I do want to note that Councilmember Owens is on the meeting and joined us. So moving forward, public hearing, there are none. Which then moves us into item number 6, consent agenda. We have items A through O. I think Councilmember Little, did anybody, or I will put it out on the table, did anyone request an item to be pulled from tonight's agenda?
I'd like to pull item F.
As in Frank?
Yes.
Okay. Any others? All right. Councilmember Orlando, can you present the consent agenda, items A through O, minus item F as in Frank?
Absolutely. Consideration and possible action on consent agenda items A through O with the exception of F. So moved.
Second, Moore.
So we have a motion and a second. Ms. Roan, would you call for the votes?
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Little?
Aye.
Member Moore?
Aye.
Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
The motion carries 6-0 to adopt items A through O with the exception of item F.
All right. Thank you for that. And we'll move on to Council Member Carbone. Would you present item F as in Frank for consideration?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, resolution R 2020-250, so moved.
Second, Moore.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on that or staff report on it?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. This is an item that has an intergovernmental agreement with the new Brazoria County Toll Road Authority, and as such requires council review and consideration. This would be to provide our police and fire services onto that new tollway that's opened. We've been in discussion with Brazoria County for some time about this and how this works logistically. It does have some nuances with the city limits and the boundaries of the toll road authority. These kinds of agreements are fairly common, but it just provides a means of reimbursement and provision of service, primarily, frankly, if there's a car crash, so that fire can access and provide that service up onto the tollway, and whatever limited law enforcement might be needed up there as well. So we've reviewed this with internally with staff and comfortable with it, and ask your consideration of it. That's all, sir.
Okay, Councilmember Owens, you pulled the item. Do you any comments?
Yes. The comment on it, I think, looking at it, most places they use the constables to be able to do this, but it's within the city limits, but it's also within the county. If you do have an accident on the toll facility as it is, you've got the police set there, you got the EMS, you got a fire department, fire truck there for traffic control. And then as this thing reads, also you've got records that's going to be up there, and you have to clean the debris off of the roadway. I'm just saying, for $20,000, that's I don't know how this thing, and Clay, you might join in on that, on how it works if it exceeds that amount, but it seems like, we have to fill out information on this each time we have an incident up there, or if there's trash or something gets up there or falls off a truck or whatever, it's up to us to get up there and clean it up and open the traffic back up. But in accidents and things of that nature, if you have somebody that you have to arrest and you have to bring them into jail, then I don't know if this covers when you have to have the court proceedings, or if you have to take them to Angleton for the court down there for Brazoria County or what have you. But I just think, it's what they've asked for is quite a lot. And then they're asking also for us to hold records on this in order to get paid on revenue that's available through there. So I just want to bring that to attention. It seems like, that I've been around tollways for a long time through there. And, when you have a wreck out there, you got one, maybe two police cars, you got two policemen out there, you got a fire truck out there with two people in it at a minimum, you got the EMS out there, and then you have record, and then you have to clean up the site of the roadway. I know that through here in Green Tea, we have a police officer on, coming in and making rounds on Friday and Saturday night, and for us, our budget is $17,000 on that. But I'm just thinking that, as this, I think it, it's a good deal probably, but it's still within the county. And do we have to do the frontage roads? It's the same thing on there, but it just seems like it's laying all the information on us to take care of this, not only in accidents or anything like that, but in addition to that, any debris that gets on the freeway, on the tollway, it's up to us and our public works department to go and take care of that. So I just want to bring that attention to you. I don't know, if it's good, bad, or whatever, Clay. I'm sure you've been involved in it, but I'm just bringing that to attention of how much activity it could cost for us to do.
So thanks for the question. It is new. We do believe that it's a short stretch and very limited access. And it would be limited to the toll lanes, not the frontage that's already covered with our services. And all the things that you mentioned are standard responses, as you said. But again, it's new. We'll keep an eye on it, but we're not expecting a large quantity of those to be responded on. Trent, you've led those discussions. You want to add anything else? So.
Sure. Just very briefly, the way we came up with the numbers is we took about 18 months worth of accident and crash data and the time that PD and fire had spent on site with those. And we accounted for all the personnel, all the equipment, and the time that they were on site. And we just took that number and extrapolated that into what we expect on the toll lane. It was vetted through fire and PD. And as far as debris cleanup, that really only applies to anything that's blocking traffic, like something large, like a mattress or something like that. The regular day-to-day cleanup of any other debris, the Missouri County Toll Road Authority will have their own contract for that type of cleanup. We developed it like that. It's got mechanisms in there to track it, and if the cost exceed that, then Missouri County Toll Road Authority would be willing to increase based on the actual time and effort of our personnel and equipment that are on site.
Okay, is it Trent? Is this for a 5-year contract or what?
It gets the costs actually get reviewed annually. And I believe that the actual contract's for a little bit longer than that. I'm looking for that clause.
Yeah, I was wondering because it says that in the contract that we're signing that it says for the county for revenue that's available. I really don't know what that means. I don't know if it's something that they appropriate so much money.
Well, as far as stipulated, it's the Toll Road Authority, so they'll pay for it out of their toll revenues. And I'll just be clear so everybody's on the same page. We don't pay wreckers. I mean, you mentioned that, and I'm sure you know that, but they get called and they do their transports, whatever they do, and we just provide the blockage so they can operate safely.
Yeah. I understand. We don't do the wreckage, but we still have to have it closed in order for the records getting there to do what they need to do for the time period. Okay. All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Ms. Roan, would you call for the vote?
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Little?
Aye.
Member Moore?
Aye.
Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
The motion carries 6-0 to adopt resolution number R 2020-250.
All right, so that is all matters removed from the consent agenda. So we're moving on to item number 8, which is new business. I would like to have a point of privilege. If there's no objection, because utility billing has been a topic of discussion in the comments tonight from our citizens, I would like to move item number 7, the presentation on our utility billing quarterly review up front here, so our citizens can hear that since there's so much interest in it from the public tonight. Do I hear any objections to that?
I think it's a good deal to move that up.
Okay. And I had asked Clay and staff earlier today that I was going to do this. So I'm hoping Mr. McCarter is ready for his presentation tonight. I meant to actually mention it just before we did the consent agenda, and I apologize for that. So make sure
thank you for that. Just to kick it off a little bit, Mayor, this is another quarterly update. Public, we have shared information to the council in written form as we've gone along, but it went well, and I think was well received to provide in this form as well, an overview. And with that, really, I'll just turn over to Mr. McCarter and or Ms. Nancy Massey, who's our utility billing manager, to share the update. I did, just for council to follow along, did send out the PowerPoint to y'all this afternoon. We've made some updates to that, so you'll have that. So, John.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson, and good evening, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight to present this quarterly utility billing update. As Mr. Pearson mentioned, this will be our second one, following up on an August meeting. Before I get into the nuts and bolts of today's presentation, I do want to recognize and thank staff, not just those who you'll hear from tonight, but all the staff who work behind the scenes. That's our customer service folks, that's our billing folks. That's our colleagues and partners in Public Works and Meter Services, Engineering, Capital Projects, and all the departments that support the work that we do. This is a large undertaking, and we you'll hear from myself, Nancy Massey, and Robert Upton tonight, but we are just three of a larger team that has contributed to the things we'll cover here tonight. So to go through tonight's agenda, what we'll cover over the course of this presentation, first of all, we'll do an introduction. Cover some background, where we've been and look ahead to where we're going. Provide a brief progress report on some items that we've been working on since the last time we talked, specifically some of the successes and some of the lessons learned that we've seen over the last 3 months. Then I'll hand it off to Ms. Massey, who'll talk about some of the proactive projects her and her staff have undertaken. Then I would say probably most importantly on the agenda tonight, we do have 4 items that we're looking for some council direction on, which Ms. Massey will cover in detail. We'll provide a brief update on the utility billing process review, which was awarded back in August, and then open it up for discussion at City Council. So some background here, kind of back when this kind of discussion point with City Council began was back in January of 2020. The larger than normal arrearage was brought to light through the annual accrual as a part of our annual audit process. Through February, March, and April in 2020, we had a number of City Council discussions, ultimately culminating in the adoption of the 3230 plan in April 2020. That plan kicked off shortly thereafter with the meter reads. The first bills going out in August for that plan. In July, we had budget amendment number 2 that had our water and sewer revenue projections, including the 3230 plans. Then in August 2020, obviously the budget came that had our revenue projections, including those updated tiers, had some fee changes as well, had some proposed staffing changes. All of that got rolled up into that document. Then as mentioned at the second meeting in October, second regular meeting, we had our first quarterly update. Shortly thereafter on that same agenda, we had the award of the utility billing process review, which was awarded to Raftellus, and they've been working diligently on that since that time period. I do want to look ahead as well. I want to absolutely make clear that tonight is an update, a bit of a snapshot in time. We'll ask for direction on 4 things, and want to be clear that we're on a path here, and that progress comes over time, and that tonight's meeting is just one snapshot, and we'll get direction, and as we work to get better. We do have some milestones coming up we want to make you aware of and make sure that we're understanding. One of the items that we'll look for consensus on are some suggested ordinance changes, which we'll bring back next month for 2 readings, the 2 meetings that are happening the first 2 weeks in December. And then Raftellus will be here to present their process review January 11th. So that will be open discussion for City Council. We'll likely have a staff component with that. That would be separate. Just with our own comments based on the findings from Raftellus. And then obviously we'll look ahead to the next quarterly update that's coming in February. Not listed here are those coming after February. We plan to continue these in perpetuity. But again, we want to make sure that we're providing the context that tonight is part of a larger process, part of a larger review to improve our practices and build an exceptional utility billing team. So starting out, I think some good context we provided last time that I think is important to provide here at the outset is the mandate for our utility billing staff. We talked last time in August about that really every leadership member of our utility billing team is new since really, I believe, May. And really over the last 6 months, we got a lot of new faces. We got a lot of new policies and practices. And it's up to us, despite that newness, to continuously improve and proactively seek out ways to improve our processes, both internally and outward facing, to make sure that we're providing exceptional service. That the status quo, how we've always done things, it's not acceptable. We'll talk about later tonight. It just won't work with our current arrearage situation. And then I added here, probably should have had this on the slide in August, but we really truly try to put the customer at the heart of everything that we do. When we get calls, when we have escalated issues, we want to make sure that we're putting the customer first and doing right by the customer. Council has made it clear that that is their priority as well. And while we make changes and while we innovate, we keep the customer at the heart of what we do and make sure that what we're doing is doing right by the customer. So first of all, on the progress report, I want to point out 4 items that came up. We label them areas for improvement here, but really these are issues that came up that impacted really more than one customer that we want to make sure we're clear about here and be clear about what caused the issue and then what we've done to make sure it doesn't happen again and do right again by the customer right there. The first is the zero usage billing. We've had 3 customers. This was caused by essentially an antenna cable within the meter came disconnected, had zero usage for a prolonged period of time, and caused issues with billing. Obviously, you can't bill without those reads. So as a result, we implemented some additional reporting to our field staff to go verify zero usage now to try to get ahead of that. So we catch it before the customer does to avoid that problem going forward. Second, with the delinquency notices that went out in the October bills, the projected amount for the late fee was not calculated properly because of an incorrect setup in the delinquency module. Now that setup was corrected when the actual amount was assessed. So what the customers are paying and what went out on the notices is correct. But what went out as, hey, if you don't pay by the due date, here's what you're going to pay was a little bit low. If it was a $100 bill, I believe the difference was around $3. We fixed that, and any customer who contacts us and says there's a discrepancy here, we have waived that fee and again, do right by the customer. But I also want to reiterate that customers are paying the correct late fees. They were assessed the correct fees. Next, mud fee adjustments. This had to do with the meter downsize project. A bit of a unique situation. Obviously, we had customers who had a large meter installed, and with the change to the base rates that came through with the FY19 budget, they would have been negatively impacted with the change to those base rates. So we allowed them to decrease the size of that meter. And when we downsized that meter, we should have reduced the mud fee as well. And we didn't do that. The average impact to the customer was about $23.57. That would have been over the course of a number of months. So that's not all one hit, but we did adjust those. We went ahead and did that. That'll be applied on their next bill coming up here. And then we've adjusted our documentation, our process to make sure that in the unlikely event that a downsize does happen again, this is caught. We're clear that it's not just the base rate that needs to change, but also the mud fee associated with it. Also, side note, we'll get with the MUDs to make sure that we're made whole for that. So there's no lost revenue or anything to the city when we make that adjustment. And then lastly, negative usage. This was really kind of one came to light actually last week with the backwards installation of the meter that caused negative usage to come up on a meter profile. Meter profiles are a relatively new tool that we've expanded to our customer service team to provide hourly usage to customers to help better diagnose what's going on and help customers understand their usage. This one we sent out without validating that data and providing a solution when we did send it out. So first of all, the meter was exchanged November 9th, I believe it was on this one, but also the other one that came to light, it was exchanged as well. And we've updated our internal protocols to make sure that we're presenting a solution to any anomalies, whether it be negative usage or no usage or anything that comes up in that meter profile when the profile is sent to the customer. So the customer has some context and understands that we're on top of that type of thing. I should note, and I should have noted this at the beginning, but in parens here for each one of these, you see the number of known impacted customers. That's the number of customers that have been, their billing has been impacted by this issue. And then the number of escalations or any customers that have escalated the issue beyond our billing, or I'm sorry, our customer service team. That's our customer service rep 1 and 2 and customer service supervisor. So again, want to be transparent here about the things that we've worked on to improve based on feedback from our customers and how we're doing right by those folks when those issues do come up. Also want to kind of focus on some things that are on track and that we are checking the boxes on, so to speak. First is the 3230 plan. Obviously that came through and was adopted by City Council in April. We have hit all the bill dates here in utility billing. Our friends over in Public Works meter services have hit all their read dates as well. So we are on track 100% with that 3230 plan as adopted and directed by City Council. Next, I want to thank and appreciate our customer service team. We still have, escalated issues that come up, and we deal with them when they do. But I want to point out that in October in the month of October, excuse me, we had just over 4,000 calls coming to utility billing. That could be somebody paying their bill, somebody just checking their account, any number of inquiries that came in. 8 of those were escalated to city management or city council. Not to dismiss 8, we want that number to be 0, but that is down from 13 in September. One of our focus areas has been to provide the tools to the customer service representatives and the customer service team to take care of concerns when they're brought by the customer, so that those issues don't get escalated, so there's not multiple callbacks and that type of thing. Most notably, I think we've really pushed cross-training that has strengthened our frontline customer service knowledge, of the billing process, which is most of the calls that we get that aren't bill pay or move in, move out, or new service setup type of things, and that's allowed our team to tackle the issue at hand. Next, follow up as a primary focus. We talked about 8 unique calls or 8 unique escalated issues to city council and city management. That doesn't minimize the importance of that. Like I said, that number needs to be 0. But when those issues do come through city council, when they do come to the city manager's office, whether that's through an email, through council contact, through a public comment, we take that seriously, and we track all of those through a custom built interface in SharePoint that's reported to city council and will be on a public dashboard, which I'll go through a little later in the presentation. But those follow-ups are done as promptly as we can, and we make sure we get the resolution back not only to the customer, but any council members or staff that they involved in that process as well. And then lastly, developing unique solutions to unique problems. The arrearage has really kind of presented challenges in a number of things that are typically standard. Probably most visibly, the 65 days of usage has kind of thrown a wrench in how we do our high bills. And we have custom built a process internally, so we're not waiting until the bill is generated to spot the high usage. We're doing it right after the meter reads come in. And as a result, we've cut 65 days between when it would have typically been caught and when we're catching it now. And we'll get into that a little bit more later. Second, and I alluded to this, but we are working on some public dashboards to do some key metric reporting for the first time, and those will be up on the website, fingers crossed, this week. As soon as we finalize that, make sure the security is tied down tight so we're not sharing any sensitive information. And then several just kind of systemic problems that have popped up because of the arrearage, and Ms. Massey will talk through a few of those tonight. But we're confident that the recommendations here will allow us to do right by the customer, stay within the 3230 plan, and proceed without incident, hopefully over the next few months. Lastly, we want to make it clear that we're working jointly internally and externally with our partners, that Raftellus has seen the entire memo that we sent out, and all the recommendations here have been reviewed by Raftellus as well. I will not pretend to speak for them. They did not raise any issues with the content that's presented or anything in this presentation or that's in the agenda request as well. So, kind of the basis of a lot of what we do these days is the 3230 plan, and this is pulled from the city's website. You can see highlighted in red here are the November bills and the December bill for cycle 14. But, I talked about being on a path and, coming over the course of time to close that arrearage and get to the end of this 3230 plan. It's important that when we talk about progress thus far, we see it within the context of where we've come. You can see that blue line is getting smaller, albeit probably a little bit longer period of time than a lot would like. But we are on track here. We have hit all the dates that are put forth for us, or were put forth for us in the 3230 plan. So over the course of time, we do expect to get down, not expect, we will get down to below that 15-day, within that 10 to 15-day target for read date to bill date. Sharing here for the first time our preliminary year-end accrual for water, sewer, and garbage services. I mentioned at the outset, this was kind of how the arrearage came to light last year. And this is kind of the math behind the scenes of how it was calculated this year and a little bit of a snapshot in time. This is a standard adjustment that we do at year-end to recognize revenue in the year that it was earned. So think about it, moving the money to when you turn the faucet, that's where it should be realized in accounting terms. This is not lost revenue. When you're looking at the chart up here at the top, hopefully made this a little bit easy on you guys. But you can see it arranged by cycle at the top here, so grouped by each cycle. The usage from field here is showing the beginning of the service period for the 2020 October bills. So all those days from 6/20, it would be June 22nd through September 30th are being accrued backward. And you can see what that means in dollar amounts. You can see the number of days here. And you can see it's different for each cycle, obviously, because those read dates are happening at different times. This was an effort to hopefully make this a little bit more digestible for folks. Do want to note that the garbage is included in the accrual, but wasn't impacted by the billing arrearage because that's just a standard monthly fee. So there was no meter read cycle to get out of whack. So that is just a standard 1 month accrual here. But kind of the headline in the lower right-hand corner is that this is a $12.1 million accrual. If you look at, isolate out just the water and sewer services, it's an increase of $2.8 million or 32% over the $8.7 million accrual last year. Understandably, some would look at that and say, we're heading in the wrong direction. Why is this getting bigger? We need to keep in mind, as I stated on the previous slide, this is a snapshot in time. We are on a pathway towards closing this gap. And with the adoption of the 3230 plan in April, we weren't taking those first reads until the May-June timeframe. So we had already gotten most of the way through that fiscal year before we kind of reversed the tide. And if we wouldn't have rolled out the 3230 plan when we did, this accrual would be bigger. But it does put us on a path. And you can see here, the increase is really driven by the increase in days. It was 70 days last year. This day it's 100, or this year it's 100, the max accrual by cycle. Standard, we want to just do one cycle. So it'd be within 30 to 35 days, depending on where those cycles lay out and how those are, those fall on the calendar. So with the accrual, with the rollout of the 3230 plan, it's going to continue to shrink. If we fast forward a year and where are we going to be in 1 year, the city's going to accrue 81 days next year. So that'll be down 19 days there because of progress through the 3230 plan. So I'm confident that we'll see this dollar amount shrink next year along with the days. You can see that the increase of from 70 to 100 is what the driving force is here. I do want to add a note that in the memo, we included a dollar amount estimate for the arrearage, which was a measurement of the bill date, the read date to the bill date. This is a little bit different because it's including the whole service period. We don't include that arrearage estimate in this PowerPoint to avoid confusion, but if there's any further questions, I can take those. But for the moment, I think the accrual is what we should focus on. So resumption of delinquencies and the late fee process. Back in August, we went into a fair amount of detail about our plans for how we're going to step back into the delinquency processing, which was put on hold last winter when the arrearage came to light, and then was remained on hold through COVID and through the beginnings of the 3230 plan. We have begun a campaign back in, I think it was October, we had our first campaign to get people back in good standing with the city. And this chart, I think, tells a really nice story here. These are the robocalls for week 1, week 2, week 3, and robocalls go out to any customer who is not in good standing with the city. I want to be clear, this doesn't mean that this many people have actually paid the arrearage. It means that they've gotten on payment plans. It means that they've secured payment extensions, that they have worked with the city as we've been directed by city council last time to get in good standing. And you can see that number is down by 50%. We're excited to see that. People are taking advantage of those opportunities to catch back up and to get their delinquencies taken care of. So the aging report, looking back to February 2020, hopefully you all remember this chart from August. Basically what we're looking at is the dollar amount of delinquencies at any given point in time. So each one of these is a snapshot in time. We run a report as of February 20, March, April, May, and show that the trend. And the last time the headline was, this is growing, we need to do something about it. Looking here through October, which is the last closed month, so that's what we report based on, we actually saw a decrease. If you look for the change from the prior month down here in the lower right-hand corner of $61,000. Now, relative to the increase, that's not a lot, but I see that as major encouragement that just from the public outreach that we've done just by the robocalls, we're starting to see that turn. And we're starting to see, and if you look on the right-hand side here, the change from the prior month, you can see in everything that's lower than 120 days delinquent, we saw a reduction. So that's less revenue getting in the pipeline and working its way towards 120 plus. That's what we like to see. Obviously, a long ways to go, and I think you're going to see further reduction as we get further along in the delinquency process. But this is a snapshot in time, and hopefully seen as for what it is, which is a step in the right direction. Do you want to give an update just generally on the delinquency process? The next step coming up is the non-payment shutoffs. This is not something that we've done since the winter, but in line with the conversations that we had last time, the week of October 30th, we will begin this process again. Roughly 200 shutoffs per month or 50 bills per cycle per month. The standard process here that we're going to jump back into following is, the late fees are assessed and auto-generated calls go to the customer. Then the delinquency notice is mailed to that customer. If there's still no payment, there's a second auto-generated call 1 week prior to the shutoff. Shutoffs are performed Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and we do not do shutoffs on the week of any holidays. So this, again, a standard process, but obviously a big benchmark for us to get to, and will likely drive some activity into our office and drive some calls up as folks are disconnected for non-payment. Proactive high usage monitoring. I alluded to this earlier as a success story, and I want to focus a little bit more on it. In particular here, this is a staff initiated and staff designed process. If you just let the billing process play out right now, the soonest we would catch a high bill would be 65 days after the actual usage happened. Now, last time we talked about adjusting some policies so we could credit customers back that far, which is nice, but the damage is already done at that point. That water's already used. So what staff has done is they take the text file that comes from the meter read and upload it into a system that we designed. And basically we pick out the 25 highest consumption accounts and reach out to those customers and say, hey, we noticed that you have a high bill coming up. Let's talk about that. Let's figure out what's going on. So the basic process down here is once identified, we reach out to those customers via phone to advise of the upcoming bill. With those unsure customers or those that want to discuss it further with us, we provide possibilities for the increase. Although I'll be clear, they're not solutions. We walk through potential of what could be going on and work with the customer about their own scenario. And then with the timely identification, we can offer a meter profile for the analysis and hopefully dig a little bit deeper to help the customer understand what's going on. To date, we've contacted 173 customers with this new proactive system, and we performed 175 meter profiles for those customers, again, to help them understand where the usage is happening, when it's happening, to a little more detail than a monthly lump sum bill can provide. Lastly, for my piece of this is the utility billing key metrics dashboard, and I'm really excited about this. We have 4 kind of areas that we've identified for the first phase of this project, but this is a Microsoft Power BI dashboard that was built internally 100% by staff to illustrate some key metrics. The first is our delinquencies here. You can see here shown by month, really for the last 2 years. The aging report, similar to what we showed before. Now the reporting here is a little bit different because this is just one report, whereas the last one was a manual report that we pushed together. But you can see we can illustrate kind of our progress towards shrinking the delinquency amounts right here on this dashboard. This will be interactive and live. We're hoping in the next 2 days. Next, the 3230 plan, probably the headline, but you can see on the upper right-hand corner here, we have a nice little filter that will allow people to narrow in on one period of time when they want to see, whether that be past, present, or future. And then you can see broken out by cycle here. You see the history of how we got to where we are. And then you see the future of how is this going to be addressed? When is this meter read to bill date gap going to be all the way closed? And this takes you all the way to the completion of the plan. And then for those like me who like a simple graphic, you get your speedometer on the left-hand side here with the target 15 days. And then obviously where we are now, as we go through the plan, as we move forward, that blue will get less and less and less until we hit that 15-day mark. Again, a marker of transparency to make sure that we're clear on where we're at in the plan and where we're going in the future. Next up, we have our daily usage. We obviously, with a 3230 plan, we went from 28 days to 32, so there's more days in a cycle. So if you're keeping your daily usage exactly the same, your bill is going to be higher because there's more days in the cycle. So what this is illustrating here is the average daily usage by cycle, by month for the last year. I will add a small caveat here. You can see that May 2020 is missing. That's because we didn't have a read date end in May. So it's just a quirk of how the calendar fell with the 3230 plan. But that usage rolls up into June. So you still get the point. But the hope here is that we can look at what's the average usage by day, breaking it down into that nominal unit rather than looking by month because the service period has changed. Also, just for reference, we added the total precipitation here up in the right-hand corner. I know a lot of times folks like to look at that relative to their usage. So that's there for our reference point. And then lastly, I would say maybe most importantly, we look at the call volume coming into utility billing here. So this is actually two data points that we merged together. The first is our Cisco call center here. So the total number of calls by month and reasons. This will get a lot more colorful as we roll out reason codes in Cisco. So for now, it's a little boring, but it'll get much more exciting here in the near future. But you can see we take these call volumes, and hopefully that 4,000 looks familiar because we talked about it earlier. And then we look at what issues have been escalated. So what are the issues that we're not able to handle here in utility billing, and eventually they end up with City Council. They end up with the manager's office. And you can see it broken out here. And this is really just over the last 6 months or so that we've been using this. All these escalated issues, like I mentioned, are tracked through SharePoint. That's basically a feature that we built out here internally to provide some transparency. We don't have any individual customer data here, but this shows kind of an aggregated, what are these issues that are getting escalated so we know where to focus to prevent these. Because again, our target is 0 escalated inquiries because we should be able to handle those ourselves as staff. So like I said, this is coming up. We will be posting this on the utility billing website. We're hoping by Wednesday, so before Thanksgiving, we should have this posted up and ready to go. And like I said, I anticipate this to evolve and grow from here. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Nancy Massey, Utility Billing Manager. Thank you all. I think we might need to unmute.
Thank you, Mr. McCarter. Good evening, Mayor Cole. Good evening, Council and Mr. Pearson. I'm Nancy Massey. I'm your Water Billing and Collections Manager. And as stated by Mr. McCarter, I want to echo the same comments that the customers are at the heart of the actions that we do here in utility billing. It is who we work for, and that is something that we believe in every day. I want to continue with the proactive projects that we have. Beginning with the first one that we're looking at, we want to update the format on the bills to reflect the customer's determined sewer seasonal average. Since the beginning of, since October 1st, the beginning of the budget, utility bills for residential sewer is based on this lesser amount, either the actual water usage or the customer's determined seasonal sewer average. This variation may be confusing to a residential customer. So to that end, we want, as an addition to the bill format, to illustrate the customer's determined seasonal average on the bill. And with that was a bill message stating how the service is calculated. Next screen. Second proactive approach that we have here in utility billing is the refresher training for all customer service representatives. Utility billing is a team. That's been noted by Mr. McCarter, and I echo the same thing. We are a team. We continue to have that progress that we want to have, learning new things and refreshing our knowledge in the training that we have as well. In order to do that, we want to incorporate, there will be no overtime when we do this. We put in some flex time where the staff will come in early or they leave a little later for lunch or whatever the case is, but we will incorporate no overtime, and we meet once a month for 45 minutes. The third proactive project that we're working on is, as stated earlier by the council as well as Mr. McCarter, is that we discussed in August, the billing adjustment policy has been updated from 2 consecutive months to now reflecting 4 consecutive months. And we want to show some flexibility in that as well, as we are customer centric in this. Council, the following 4 items staff requests your consensus direction on. And the first one I want to look at is the final billing processing. Now, when we do final billing processing, which is also called the move-out bills, the current process is that the customer contacts us to close their account. The final meter reading is taken on the move-out date specified by the customer. The final bill includes all usage from the last bill meter reading to the move-out meter reading. Billing is over 65 days of usage, and we bill in one base rate at a standard of the 3230 billing rates. This is an automatic process that we do. Next screen. In front of you is an actual bill of a customer. This bill is a 96-day bill, total consumption of 19,600 gallons. The consumption is reflected in the higher tiers. Again, this is an automatic process that comes from our system. And it'll show the 96 days due to the billing latency that we're under right now. I want to show you 2 other options that we're looking at. The first option is the 3 billed basis. The 3 billed basis is, again, a 96-day bill that you're looking in front of you here. It is also for 19,600 gallons. But as you can see from the highlighted areas, each one of the bills is a separate billing. If the customer didn't move out, this would be their actual billing that they would get. They would have a water-based charge, a sewer-based charge, and the usage would be based on the reading period that's in front of them. But yet the garbage rate and the mud fee would be assessed to the final billing that you're seeing on the last column, which is on January 4th. The total of that bill is $207.22. And then let's go to look at the next one. The second option is the 1 billed base. This is where we would charge the 1 billed base in the final billing period. They would be charged the sewer base and the water base in the final billing, along with the mud and the garbage. But if you notice on the 2 unbilled usages, they were both for the same tiers as their usage for their reading periods. So they're only be charged. Again, this is a 96-day bill. This is for the total use of 19,600 gallons. It is also noted here too that this is as relative to the 3 billed one that we looked earlier. There is a loss of revenue relative to the 3 bill base, that estimated impact of $300,000. I also want to note too that these 2 options that you're looking at, the 3 billed and the single base, also is a manual process that staff would have to do here in the office itself, and looks similar to what you're seeing right now. So the next screen will show you a comparison to all 3. Again, each one of these is billed at 19,600 gallons, 1 garbage rate, 1 mud rate, 1 sales tax. The current process right now is an automatic process. We bill 1 base rate, we bill all the usage in 1 bill, and the total cost of that is $152.41. In comparison is the 3 bill base. It is a manual process. For approximately, we do 250 to 300 per month in this office. This customer would be billed 3 base charges as if they didn't move out, and they would be billed their usage appropriate to the bill periods for the 3 separate bills. The total cost on that would be $207.22. And the third one is 1 bill base. Again, a manual process of 250 to 300 per month. They'd be billed 1 bill base, and that bill usage is appropriate to the bill periods of 3 separate bills. The total cost of that is $131.89. Again, I want to point out that it is an estimated loss of annual revenue of $300,000 relative to the 3 bill bases. In addition to the final bill processing, we need to also update the bill format. Take out the words past due, and what staff recommends using the words balance at billing. Also, we want to show that would be the balance of billing would illustrate the unbilled usage. Also, the final bill would be put down as under in the field of current charges. And in addition, look in the important messages, the balance of billing is the field that represents the unbilled amount with no penalties. Again, I want to point out this would be a manual process that staff would do. It takes we do 250 to 300 a month. on the separate options that you're looking at. Let's go ahead and move on to what is the second item for the council consensus, and that is the true-up calculation. The true-up calculation, we all know that the true-up plan is the option that allows the customer to pay their full amount of the arrearage and place it into an alternate billing cycle. That bill date will be from 10 to 15 days from the redate. That will be available once the AMI is fully operational. For consistency purposes, staff is recommending that whatever council recommends for the final bill calculations, that they do the same in the true-up calculations. We see that these are identical and same in nature, and it's the same calculation. So we want that to be consistent, is what we're looking for. The third item of the we need for council consensus is the 3230 plan with the double due dates in the same month. The 3230 plan will remain on track, as noted by Mr. McCarter. The implementation of the due dates included more than one due date in 2 billing cycles. The billing calendar cannot be adjusted to one due date per month. Staff attempted this, and by pushing out the date, it created a domino effect, which eventually the current bill is due on the same day the next month's bill is mailed. If this were to happen, the next month's bill would be incorrect. So to that end, thank you. To that end, staff is recommending that for on the second due date on these outlier billing cycles, that we assess the water and sewer usages, not to assess the base charges, and not to assess the monthly garbage and mud cost. This will ensure that no customers will ever pay more than one base rate per month in the 3230 plan. The next screen. The fourth item will be brought to council in December, but it is something that the council we're looking for a consensus with as well. The utility billing ordinances are in need of an updating. This is the section 30. They need both the housekeeping updates as well as new ordinance for the departmental changes and industrial standard best practices. Especially when I looked at this, it was for the due dates, the deposit requirements, the testing of the water meters, and bankruptcy notice procedures. As stated, we will bring this to council in December, but a brief description is provided to you in the Thursday packet that was dated November 12th under the utility billing quarterly review. Next screen. Council, the next 2 slides describe the current special projects that are in utility billing. And then first one you're very aware of, next screen, that is the utility billing systems review. This was awarded to Reptilis in the August 24th council meeting. And that was it with kickoff meeting on that was on September 29th. And at this time, they have done 37 interviews. The initial documents have been provided to them, along with the UB weekly updates and the May 29th UB priorities and recommendations memo. Finance staff has met with Reptilis on November 10th to discuss the progress and respond to their questions, and we have provided them this presentation as well as the November 12th Thursday packet, as noted by Mr. McCarter earlier. Reptilis' presentation to City Council is tentatively scheduled for January 2021. And with that, I'd like to send that over to Mr. Robert Upton, who will provide the information on the AMI update.
Thank you, Ms. Massey. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Robert Upton, Director of Engineering and Capital Projects. I'm here to provide a quick update on the AMI project. This is our meter changeout program that's going on right now. As we all know, we've had some delays that are outside of the city's control that fall in line with the contractor. With that, we're continuing to move forward with our meter completion and installation. We'll be GPS or ground positioning all the meters located in the system. We'll be refinishing up, repairing all box and lid repairs. We're estimated to have that completion about mid-December of this year, which we're excited about. As of the last update this morning, we have about 166 meters left to go in the system to change out from the old meter style to the new meters. From that standpoint, we will start in December the process of installing our connected grid routers, or CGRs, on the poles that will stand about 60 feet tall in the city. We have 53 that are required. Of those 53, 27 are already installed that we had installed previously as city has done it. The contractor will be installing 26 new ones. And we'll be replacing all of the connected grid routers, all 53, moving forward. Part of this that was out of our control that has not been implemented in the city at all at this time was there was a manufacturing power issue associated with the CAM3 modules. We are anticipating those being shipped next week. So the week of November 30th will be shipped to return it back to us so we can install those in the new connected grid routers and then start the process of scheduling the installation of that system. We'll be establishing our network testing procedures once those items are in the, what I'll say, in the network and are live. We'll be beginning training with utility billing with Nancy Massey's group on fully understanding the AMI system and the collection associated with that versus the drive-by system that we are using right now. We'll be finishing up and developing the customer portal, augmenting what Mr. McCarter and his team has been working on. And with that, we'll be looking to go live, as Ms. Massey said, once we have 2 months of data in the AMI system, moving forward with that. And then estimated go live as we're working with our contractor with the poles being installed will be in the second quarter fiscal year 21. So that would be in the late portion of the time of February, March. But that's got to be once all of our parameters are met. And that has to be done to make sure our system is complete and installed correctly. So with that, I'd like to turn that back over to Ms. Massey.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yep, to Ms. Massey to go ahead and complete our presentation. Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Upton. Council, also want to reiterate our utility billing goals. Our utility billing goals are to continue to rebuild the trust with our community and our customers. We're doing this through transparency tools that have been provided, and we want to show you that through the KPI dashboards that we're presenting, as well as the meter profiles, and to view the usages in those meter profiles in preparation for the AMI system and the customer portal that Mr. Upton has indicated. I'm looking forward to seeing that, so is staff, and I know the rest of us are looking forward to seeing all of this as well. Our goal is the customers, and because we work for those customers, and this is what we want to bring forward to them. Next screen. Finally, Council, we want to ask you in closing the Council's consensus again for the final billing processing, the true up calculations, the 3230 plan due dates. The ordinance changes, we'll be bringing those forward to you in December for the first and second readings. And we'll have any other questions and discussions after this. But at this point, I'd like to hand it back to Mr. Pearson.
Thank you, Nancy, Robert, and John. I hope Council appreciates all the, I know you do all the work that's gone into reviewing all this and trying to make progress. And I think I'm pleased with the progress that has been made and more to come. So Mayor, turn it back to you and any questions, but if we could get to the consensus after those questions, that would be fantastic. Thanks, sir.
Sounds good. Thank you, team, for the update on where we sit. This is an issue that over the last 8 to 10 months as running for office has been probably the single biggest hot button issue from one end of town to the other that I've heard, bar none. Even sitting at polling locations and people going in to vote, coming out and coming over and directly stating, please get in there and fix this system. So the fact that, and these are from folks that I didn't even know who they are. I mean, just time and time again, would hear from people. So I'm glad to hear and see and hear that the staff recognizes that trust has been broken with this system moving forward or in the past. My goal as mayor, and one of the things that I stated was I'm going to do everything I can possibly do to reestablish trust in this system moving forward. I've told people you have to do that a number of ways. Most importantly, we cannot over-communicate to the public what it is we're trying to do. Unfortunately, this is a very even the presentation tonight, it's a very complicated system. It's very complicated in moving parts, and how you effectively communicate that to 40,000+ customers is hard. It's time consuming, it's difficult. The other issue is transparency. And I'm glad that we're going to have tools of transparency and those types of things. But from time and time again, I've heard from hundreds of people across the community, and I see and hear 4,000 people call in and only a very small number get escalated. But I can tell you time and time and time again, I hear from people that go, I call in, they tell me X, they just don't listen to me, and they feel defeated, and they just turn around and go pay their bill. So they're upset with the system. They don't believe they have an avenue forward. They don't believe they have a voice forward. So it's very frustrating to our public. This is a monopoly. It's not termed a monopoly. I get all that, but I can't go get water from someone else. It's the only place I can buy it. And so with that, we have to be even more up on our game. Several things that I called for back in February, a complete independent investigation, a complete independent audit, and really an independent consultant to come in and show us how to fix it. And to my estimation, none of those have occurred. Even the investigation that we did, I don't believe was independent. And people in the public are seeing through that. And at the very least, we need to release everything with that investigation, including all of the work product that went into it, so people can see and if we believe in transparency, we'll do that. And to date, I'm jotting down notes and just kind of wonder, how do we know 12.1 million is even accurate? If we can't calculate a bill, someone's final bill, and it takes a manual bill, how do we know 12.1 is even accurate? These are some questions that I've got as we move through this. So with that, I would like to call in January and just talk to council about this, but I'd like to call in January for an actual independent audit of where we are. Get a fresh set of eyes that are on this. I would like to call, and I have yet to meet with Raftelis, so I'm not sure if Raftelis is really the right consultant to know what we did and really what to do to fix it. It's about processing and those types of things, but what's the best course of action? The 30/30 plan has its own problems with it. So call for an actual independent consultant to come in here and help us do this. I'd like to call for a complete investigation as to how we got this, but I think at the very least, we need to release all of the work product that Olson & Olson did so people can see everything about it. If we're going to be transparent, that's what we're going to do. So with that, I do have a couple of questions. One, this customer built high bill review, I think is a good catch. Hopefully we catch some before people get the sticker shock. My question is, what's the threshold? So is it a bill that's more than X percent, 10%, 20%? What catches your attention so we activate that?
That's a great question, Mayor Cole. What we look for is the top 25 customers that after we read the meters and we compare that unbilled usage from the previous unbilled month, we take the top 25 that have done a complete difference, a very high difference between those 2 months. So it's not a percentage that we look at. We take the top 25 accounts on that.
When you say top 25 in usage, top 25 in amount billed, what does top 25 mean?
Yes, sir. Top 25 in usage. And that's where we're comparing one usage from 1 month to the usage of the other following unbilled month. So we take the top 25 in the usage itself, because that would also dictate the higher billing itself.
Okay.
Nancy, just to clarify, the variance, top 25 variance, is that correct?
That would be good, sir. Yes,
Right.
Mr. Pearson.
So it's not just like, if they had if they had 2 high levels, that wouldn't trigger it. It'd be 2 top 25 variances between periods.
Okay. So, for example, someone who routinely uses, 10,000 gallons a month, and it's pretty flatlined, 10 to 11, it's pretty flatlined along the way, and all of a sudden a month is going to be a 40,000 gallon month. This is a system that should catch that.
If they're in the top 25, please understand too, Mr. Mayor Cole, that we have the staff that's looking through those. We're taking the top 25. So there may be customers out there that have, 50,000 as the difference between 1 month to the following month. And we would want to get that one first. But if that one, but at the 40,000 gallon, if that person had that much of a variance between one unbilled to the current unbilled month, then that would be, and he's in one of the top 25. Yes, sir. That one would be contacted personally.
Okay. And because these are actual cases that have happened, and that, and then it comes right back down to the same. There's no explanation as to why there's this huge discrepancy. And I think that's part of it. And again, I see through the presentation that some of these numbers are small. I just sometimes wonder how many people simply are paying their bill because they don't feel like they even have a voice. I'm hearing of single people, a single household, a single elderly, even getting bills in the $500 range, and they just feel defeated. And so we have to develop a plan of action of communicating what the city is doing. It's great to have this internally, and it's great for the council to see this. And yes, it's a public meeting and people can get on and see it. But we've got to develop a plan of action on how we are going to get in front of the public. Mr. Davis talked about town halls and those types of things. I plan on having quarterly town hall meetings, and perhaps the first town hall needs to be about water billing, and give us the opportunity to get out and have this dialogue with folks. Obviously, we have to set the parameters on people being upset and those types of things, but we've got to get out and see this firsthand. I did have one question on December 1. We talked about the standards for shutoffs for non-payment will resume. That's next week. It's in a week. So how are we communicating that other than website and maybe in a bill somewhere? How are we communicating that we're going back to normal, if you will, on December 1 with that?
Mayor Cole, we started that process on the resumption of late fees back in October. We did robocalls to all customers.
So it's just part of that ongoing process. It's the part of the process that was started in October.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I didn't get it. I want to make sure. Okay.
Yes, sir. And just to further on that, just to let you know that we have done bill inserts on that. And when the customer does, as indicated by Mr. McCarter, part of the process as well is that when the customer does get a late fee assessed, we also send out a call to that customer to let them know the late fee has been assessed. And then a week before the cutoff, as a matter of fact, this week itself, we're making those phone calls out to those customers.
Okay, that's good. I'll throw it open to the rest of the council for their questions on the presentation. And then we'll come back and wrap it up with this direction needed on these items.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that, Mayor Cole. If I could start, just wanted to say, Nancy and John, really appreciate the presentation. Obviously, a tremendous amount of effort going into it, especially on the visualization side. As Mayor Cole mentioned, this is a very complicated and involved topic. So the more we can do to explain to people, what's going on, I think is better. And especially when we can do it in visuals and show these gauges and dashboards, that's super helpful. I first wanted to say, really happy to hear on the last slide about rebuilding trust. That's something I've said and a lot of us have said for a long time. And I think if we keep that being the priority with the customer focus, we're going to end up in the right place. I also had a couple of questions just on the high use monitoring. I think that's definitely a big step in the right direction. Something that, you know, I'm concerned about, though, just in all of my dealings with, you know, stuff we're working on in the city, is how can we make things more systematic and not just catching one-offs and these things that come up, but kind of proactively and systematically making improvements and making sure that people don't have these issues that you know, end up costing them time and being really frustrating. And so my questions here, you know, I know we're doing the 25 highest accounts. It seems maybe a little arbitrary. And so I know that as we complete this AMI rollout, if my understanding is correct, people can go in and set alerts and say, kind of like a lot of us might be used to on our electric bills, like, hey, I want to be alerted if I use a minimum of 15% more electricity than I used last month, then I want an email about that. Or you know, mine, I actually get one like, you know, this is your usage this week compared to last week. And so I'm not sure what the parameters are there, but I wonder if there's a way that we as the city could go in and put some defaults. And so instead of running this report once a month and pulling 25 high usage accounts, if we could systematically tackle this by going in and setting some default thresholds, and people could go and adjust them, you know, and they say, you know, I don't care unless it's this high, but we could say, for example, if somebody uses 10,000 gallons of water in a single day, they should get an email. And we can be smart about what those thresholds are, but you know, if it's 10,000 gallons in a day, like that crosses something. If it's, you know, 30,000 in a week, somebody would automatically get an email. That's just kind of something I'm thinking of, because it seems like that technology is already in place. I just wanted to confirm that and get your point of view on that, Nancy.
Thank you, Councilmember Orlando. With us reading once a month right now, the AMI system is not up and fully functionable, and that will be something that we're looking to do in the customer portal when it does come up. That's something that customers will be able to set alerts and do those things. At the point that we're having right now, it is a manual process that we're going through. We're taking those readings, and then we have to go back and take the readings themselves and compare them to the last month's readings. And as I said, it is a manual process to go through, look at each one, know what the customer is, contact the customer and do that. And so I personally would like to have it where we can contact every customer that they have a massive difference between 1 month to the next, even if it's the smallest minute amount. I just don't have the manpower to do that this time, but we'll see. Yeah, so going forward, I agree with you. I would like to see that in the AMI project, and that's what we're looking to do. So I'm you know, right now what we're looking at is it is a manual process. We want to at least try to get the stepping stone in place with the meter profiles and go the direction that we can eventually have it where we can look at having the AMI process giving us that opportunity that you're speaking of.
Awesome. Yeah, and I certainly don't want you running that analysis right now manually. That's not the point at all. I just want to say, you know, just kind of bring everyone's attention to, we're about to have this big change in what our ability is to review at a much more specific level what people's usage is. And maybe we can tackle some of these problems in a much more systematic way that doesn't require your team to constantly just be running reports and doing that. And I think it could catch a lot more of these. And so as we're talking about that, like, you know, yeah, this 25 accounts thing is a nice holdover in the meantime. I guess I just wanted to confirm that my perception that I think what could be a very critical tool is going to be coming into our toolbox in the next couple of months, or the next several months. And it sounds like that is the case. And so just wanted to maybe bookmark that on everybody's, you know, packet, that let's come back to that when we do have that capability, because that could solve a lot of this way more efficiently. And so I think, yeah, and then I had a couple of questions just on the requested feedback items. So in terms of talking about the true up amount calculation, you were talking about kind of some of how it got a little wonky as we were trying to bill like once per month. So I just wanted to make sure that my understanding there was correct. does that mean that we're never going to be able, even after we're finished with the 3230 plan, even after we catch up the billing, is it the case that we'll never be able to make it a setting that just, hey, at the final day of every month, send out a bill? And I guess we stagger them too by the 4 periods, but are we never going to be able to have a setting that just says one bill per month in the system that we currently have?
Well, that's what we're looking to do. We're billing customers once a month. And we stagger them right now because you can imagine if you have everybody getting one bill at the end of the month, then they have one due date. If I'm answering your question for you, Councilman Orlando.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking is, it sounded like, I was a little unclear. It sounded like you were saying on a given month, there was an issue where we're resolving, we're making sure that people don't get double billed, but that you can't just in the system say, I want to generate one bill per month, that was like not an option that was allowed.
In regards to the double due dates, is that's what you're referring to on that?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that was because of how the calendar was set up by council on the 3230 plan when we implemented the due dates. Okay. It provided that double due dates.
Got it.
So it is a manual process we do in the office here to ensure that the direction that you want to give the council consensus direction on that, to go ahead and not bill the base charges again and just bill the tiered usage and do not bill the garbage and the mud, just that on the first bill only, not on the second due date on those outlier 2 cycles.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Nancy, but I mean, this issue is a function of the 32 days. And so to answer your question, Member Orlando, I believe, once we normalize it, with the calendar, it'll go back to an average and follow the calendar, so you won't have that problem.
Gotcha. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. And then, my question is, in terms of those manual processes we're talking about, what is you said 250 to 300, and I'm sorry, this is now for the final bill processing question. What is the time associated with the manual process of calculating those 250 to 300 accounts per month?
If you don't mind, I'd like to get back to you on that time frame that you're looking at, because we want to provide that documentation to customers, as you saw before, which is on a spreadsheet, put it in a PDF. But I'd like to review your request and get back to council on that response of the time frame it takes us to do 250 to 300.
Gotcha.
But
okay.
I think if I can jump in real quick, we're not concerned that it's overly burdensome to staff. We're confident we can carry it out. I think your question is how long does it take to do one, and we can get back to you on that. But we're confident that if direction comes from council to take that path, that we can do that with the staff that we have now. Is that right, Nancy? Seeing her nod her head. So just want to clarify.
Yes, that is clear. We do not need extra staff to do it. We can do that, and we can go forward in that path.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, again, I think, of course, there's a lot of work to go here, but, we've had these big changes needed, and I'm pleased to see that you guys are, have these big changes underway. So thank you for the work, and look forward to continuing to improve this. Thanks.
All right, Mayor, I guess I'll jump in. First of all, thank you, Nancy. You've got thrown into the fire, the boiling water, whatever you want to call it. If we'll go back to slide 6, just a couple questions on that 1 meter that was installed backwards. When you look at that profile, I think there were some negative and some positive usage on that profile, and I guess I'm trying to figure out if the meter was installed backwards, wouldn't it be just a constant negative usage?
I'd like to go ahead and look into that, because that was a question I had too, Councilman Carbone. It's mostly based on the amount of flow that water will go through. Like irrigation systems will have a higher flow, therefore it shows a positive flow, and then a smaller flow will show as a negative flow, is what I've seen. But I really want to go ahead and get a better answer on that from the manufacturer of what that is, of what they've seen on that, and go from that and be able to get back to council on that.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it, because that just doesn't seem seem right. If it's installed backwards, I would think it'd be consistently, reporting a negative number. Along the same lines, can you expound a little bit on the disconnected antennas, and do we lose that usage, or once that antenna is reconnected, is that meter carry the historical data and then we get it back?
Exactly what you just said on the second part of that, Councilman Carbone. What it was is that the last reading that the antenna holds is the last reading it has in there. And then when the cable was disconnected from it, and the meter kept registering its usage, and when you reconnected that cable, the problem was that the customer was receiving from a 0 usage for those months disconnected cable. All of a sudden they were getting a very high bill on the month that the cable was reconnected. And then we found that problem in doing the AMI project. So in order to compensate for the customer for that time frame, we want to bill the customer based on their 32 usage. We don't want to bill them for the time frame that they had the 0 usage. I don't want to see them being back billed for it. I'd rather see them being billed for the usage of that time frame. So no, they don't lose the data. It's just that it was the last reading that the system picked up.
Okay, and so we went out there, so we saw it was 0. We went out there, reconnected it, then that triggered the high volumes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. On slide 7, I agree with what the mayor said. Just because we've got 8 people that escalated it, I don't want to say don't pat yourself on the back, but there's a lot of just pissed off folks out there. I hate to say it bluntly, and yeah, they're not going to go somewhere else to get their water. Just because they didn't call us doesn't mean that there's not issues out there, and so I appreciate the slant of all this, trying to get the trust back. And in regards to the mayor's comments about an independent investigation or audit, I think if we do put that maybe on that January 11th agenda item, after we hear what Raftellus has done in the past, see what their report says, any recommendations, and if we can at least have the agenda worded as such that we could have that discussion at that time. And then the final thing, slide 12, in regards to the shutoffs, I hate to put more work on staff, but do we ever do any hangers or door hangers or anything prior to just shutting the water off? So I could hear, I can see already, I didn't get the bill, or I didn't get your phone calls. I guess, have we done everything possible to reach out before we go shut somebody's water off?
I'd like to address that too, Councilman Carbone. With the robocalls that went out in October, with the bill inserts that we've done, with the phone calls that you've received a late fee, that with the phone call that you get a week before the cutoffs, other than, I know that people, you're saying something about door hangers. There's 2 things about door hangers that I'm concerned about is the fact of, you're putting a door hanger out on something that, they may miss it altogether. I've had people go through the garage instead of going through their front doors. And so, and it's another level of, a communication that go out, but it is something that it'll have to be done by hand itself. We're trying to be more efficient in the time frame that we have and the people that we have as well.
Okay. And I respect that. I'd say the first time we go through and shut off, if we do have just some missed communications, let's figure out the best way to contact those folks. And I like the parameters on no holiday weeks and doing it Tuesdays through Thursdays. I think all that makes sense. But if there is some better way to communicate, I've had my water shut off for just some routine maintenance, and it was in the middle of getting the girls dressed or something. it's horrible. The first thing I do is make sure my bill's paid. But yeah, even I just want to make sure that we're cognizant of that. And then in terms of the input you need from council, I'm going to let everybody else go through and ask questions, and then maybe circle back on the direction needed.
I guess I'll go.
Carbone, I want to also tell you too that, you know, whenever we would do shut off somebody and there was some other questions that come up or concerns or anything dealing with COVID or some other issues, we've been also working through payment plans and payment extensions and being very customer centric in these issues. You know, restarting something like this is, it can be daunting, but we also understand who we work for and the situation that we're under right now. So I want to let you and the council hear that as well from the staff.
All right, thank you.
I guess I'll go next. I had it on here to talk about the water shutoff process. So when since we're on the discussion, let's just talk about that just to be clear. So how far in the rears does somebody need to be in order for us to initiate the process of shutting off their water and letting them know that they are at risk of having their water shut off?
When you're 1 month in arrears, that you're still in arrears on that, but we're also going to be looking at taking we're looking at the top 50 accounts. So the top 50 accounts could be the accounts that are 2 months in arrears or better than when you have that type of situation. I have to look at the numbers on on that, Councilman Perez, but you know, I'm more to the fact I don't like shutting people off after 1 month, even though that is something that is able to be done. I personally, you know, my experience on that, I would rather do 2 months or more.
And Nancy, correct me if I'm wrong, but the prioritization is done based on customers who owe the most would be first to be shut off and then works backwards. And then just from a manpower perspective, we have to cut off at 50 per cycle. Is that fair? Just for practicality's sake?
Yes, sir. For practicality, yes, sir, it is. You know, we take the top accounts that are owed money, the highest amounts, and we work backwards on that with the top 50.
Well, maybe that's something we need to establish as a policy, is exactly how many bills do they need to have missed before we put them at risk of owing of having their water shut off. Look, I'll be honest with you, I didn't grow up with a whole lot of money, so I had my water shut off kind of routinely, mostly because sometimes it was a light bill or a water bill, and we were hoping one would be more forgiving than the other. We have people in the community that have to live like that. I don't want to hyper stress people out, particularly not kind of use the current situation as the excuse for why we should do everything. But we will go through recessions. We will go through times where people are laid off more often than others. We want to have systematically, as the history of Pearland unfolds, to be more forgiving than we are punitive. So, you know, even though we can technically say, hey, you missed a month and we cut you off, I don't know a whole lot of utilities that really do it that way. Maybe there's a policy for we wait till it's 2 months or 3 months before we start putting them on to you're about to get cut off. After the first month, you know, obviously we send them an next bill and say, hey, you still owe us. And the third month, hey, you still owe us, and you still owe us from the previous. And then we put them on a cycle of you've got to get caught up, or are you gonna risk shutting people off? I do think as we communicate to them, look, we can certainly be overt. I don't want to embarrass anybody. You know, I mean, frankly, I get the intent of trying to be overt with a door hanger. I don't want to have somebody have a door hanger for their neighbors to know, hey, they're struggling. I mean, I appreciate the intent. I don't believe the intent was rude, but I believe that's a rude approach. I would be heartbroken if I knew I was a couple of months behind in my bills because I was struggling to make ends meet, and now all my neighbors know what I've been trying to hide from them. You know, that's just certainly not the interactions we want to have with our customer base. But I do think that, you know, we be a little bit more forgiving than a standard utility would be, and we put people on a path to get paid. And when we find out, look, they're clearly just not attempting to pay, they're either they have the incapability of paying, or they are not communicating with us all to say how they're going to get paid. Then we put them on a plan to get their water shut off as a final solution.
You know, I just, I think that's probably the most fair way of doing it. So maybe with the future update, we talk about how many collective bills must they meet, or must they have been shown not to have paid before we actually put them into a your water's about to get shut off process. With the respect to the issue in and of itself, look, we can tell just by your presentation, it is hyper complex. There is a lot of moving parts. There's probably no single individual that understands it all. There's a lot of room for error, and there's a lot of room for things to go wrong for a particular customer. We have 40,000 accounts, roughly. You know, to have 4,000 people call on 40,000 accounts is a 10% error rate. I don't particularly consider that great. But as we move that number down, and we move the amount of people who call and elevate to something that they deem to see reliable down, I find that to be successful. We will never get to a day where nobody calls about their water bill. Frankly, there are going to be people who left their hose on and forgot to turn it off while they were filling their pool, which I have done, and say, oh, there's no way I could have possibly used that much water. And either they consciously know it or they subconsciously know it. But you're going to have people who are going to get pissed off because their bills are high. It's just the nature of having customers. We can't use the fact that we have dissatisfied customers as the only metric for why we believe us to be failing. When it comes to customer service, we have evidence that we failed by the fact that we failed in the amount that we were supposed to bill, the mistakes that were made by staff. You know, I think we're on a path to resolve that, but the fact that people continue to call and want some sort of resolution or have complaints on this on issues like this is not a metric that we're not improving. It's just a metric that we still have customers. For the time that I worked in the permitting department, I rarely got phone calls that came up to me that tell me I was doing a great job. They called because they were upset about something, and hopefully you could resolve it. Sometimes the resolution is, yeah, you use that much water, or yes, we installed new meters and they're reading more accurately, and we honestly believe that your previous meter was not reading accurately and you're using that much, and they may not be satisfied with it. And that's not to say that they don't have a reason to be upset, but I will tell you, water meters typically don't fail by reading high. That's just not the way they work. Typically the water has to move past them for them to read. And that's not to say it's impossible, but it's more likely to read low than it is high by a far, far margin. So if we're having mistakes because of high reads, there's probably because there's water moving through that meter. Now, is that our fault or their fault? That's something worth investigating, but just, it's way too high and it can't be that way. That's a rare, it would be very rare for me to see that the meters are failing to say you've used 500 gallons and there's just no justification for it. Not to say it's impossible, but I'm just saying it's probably very rare. Look, with respect to the investigation, look, if it's a will of counsel to investigate even further, you know, I'm not going to object to transparency. I don't know what the value is. I feel confident that we have identified the source of the problem. I feel confident in the independence of the Olson and Olson report because it was commissioned by the city attorney's office, who operates independently of the city manager's office and owes no report to the city manager. It reports directly to us and can actually tell us, at this point, I recommend you fire the city manager because they've done something illicit or illegal. It's independent by the virtue of the office that we solicited the investigation through. I also don't inherently distrust Olson and Olson because we've hired them before. They conducted interviews, they talked to everybody, they gave us a report. You know, maybe we want to provide more information as to what they put into the report, but now we're talking about reporting on the report. You know, we're just if we're going to search for a villain and for a boogeyman in this, we're going to search forever. Because I don't think that there was ever anybody who intended for something to go wrong. I think that there were people put in positions and didn't have the expertise to know, I'm making this decision and it has this consequence. That's why it was necessary as a response to the Olson and Olson report and a response to this issue
that we make an effort to hire people who are better qualified to make these decisions. Hence, we have Nancy, and John's done an excellent job taking over the finance department. You know, I just don't, you know, again, if it's the will of council that we continue to investigate, that's fine. But I just don't, I don't think we're going to find a whole lot of value in the additional investigation, particularly before we even have Reptilis give us an understanding of what they think that we can do to improve. I would just much rather focus on the solution as opposed to the problem. That's my opinion. You know, we want to go into the investigation. I'm probably going to be a no vote on that because I feel satisfied that we've gotten the answers that we want. And I also feel satisfied that we're moving confidently to greater solutions and greater transparency. I just don't want to start to the assumption that, no, it's got to be much worse than what anybody has told us right now. With respect to the decisions that you need from us, again, I'll wait for other council members to have an opportunity to input. But I do think we have good options. I'd like us to make some, you know, give you some direction, some clear direction today, and then hopefully we can move forward.
This is Councilman Little. Just a couple of quick comments. I think a lot's been covered already by the previous councilman and Mayor Cole. Obviously, one of the big things we have ahead of us is changing the public perception. There's still a lot of distrust out there. And you heard it tonight with some of the public speakers. I know some of them speak about this on a regular basis, but they do have a platform out there and people listen to them. So I think we need to reach out to those people and try to make them a little more positive about what we're doing. And I guess we can, I don't know if Reptilis has shared anything with staff yet on possibly addressing the public perception and distrust issue, but if they have, I'd like to hear a little about that. And I guess this is a question for engineering. My brother-in-law worked down on the port cities, and they installed these electric meters with the antennas all around the city, and they had a lot of problems and still having problems with it. And maybe an effort to be proactive. Are we going to? I think Robert Upton said we had 27 of the 52, I think it was, installed. Is there a way we can start testing these early on so that we can maybe address some of the signal problems between meters and towers and the receivers, just so that, you know, I don't know if the plan is to wait till they're all up and then test them then, or is that the only way you can test them if they're all up? But just like a little feedback on that. And that's really all I have right now.
Councilman Little, this is Robert Upton. With regards to your statement about testing, is that yes, we will be testing them as they come online. We'll be looking at having small areas to test. We're doing some testing right now with some city meters as we're looking at those, trying to set some alerts and some alarms, doing some pre-work on this to make sure everything's working correctly. So when we start installing the new connected grid routers, with the correct CAM3 module in it, that we'll be starting to head in the right direction and getting ahead of the curve so we can start bringing them online as they get installed. So that is the plan right now, and looking forward to implementing that as we go along.
Thank you, Mr. Upton. That's a good answer. I appreciate that.
Mayor,
yes,
this
sir.
is Woody. A couple of things on this. You know, I see we got a presentation here and how possibly we might come out of it. But when you go through and you look at it, you know, the loss of revenue on the affected budget for the late fees since February, we lost $433,000. And with the same thing that is occurring on this next budget, we're going to lose another $400,000, and so that's getting pretty close to $1 million on that. I didn't see anything in here when we're charging late fees and how they're calculated, and then also that's paid a deposit, if that deposit, they get it back when they move out or that, through there. And I guess it really comes down, we talk about the top 50 accounts, but we got 37,000 accounts, in the Pearland area. But my concern is where we really go on this is, how do we get into this as a city? How do we get into this mess? And secondly, how do we get out of it? I see all kinds of things coming out, and even on this information we have here today, I mean, it sounds good, but it really doesn't give us any way out of this, of where we're at. And this has caused more problems within the city of Pearland than anything in the last 20 years, or actually the last history of Pearland. But nobody has come to the table and said, well, how did we get into this problem? And then come back out and say, how do we get out of it? It may be that, maybe we need to go and get an independent firm to come in and take a look at it as it is right now, and somebody that does water business across the United States, and take a look and see where we're at right now and see how we got into it and how we can get out of it. I think that's what we need to look at. We can talk about a lot of different things in this process, and we spend a lot of time, we spend a lot of money, 10 million on new meters and all kinds of different things like that. And we're still in the situation that we're in and haven't got out of it in the last two and a half years. So my question is, how did we get into it and how do we get out of it? And I think that needs to be answered. And I think the people that live in the city of Pearland need to have that answered now. So that's my take on this as it is.
So I think I can take a stab on a literal perspective on how we got to where we are. So and all this is up on the website too. If you go to the Pearland utility billing page, right at the top, there's a big banner that says 3230 plan and has the information and the background. But essentially, in 2018, the decision was made to move to a 28-day billing cycle. I'm sorry, a 28-day meter read cycle, and to keep the billing at once per month. And because those are not, the same, we fell behind, and that happened for would have been a year and a half, I believe it was, almost 2 years. And that's how, the meter read date got so far from the meter bill date, and this arrearage got as big as it is right now because it went on for a period of time. In terms of the question of how we get out, the 3230 plan basically takes it and flips it around, where we now have a 32-day read cycle, and we bill every 30 days. So now the read cycle is longer than the bill cycle by 2 days, and it turns it around, and it takes until 2023, I believe, early 2023. But slowly we catch back up to that. I won't reiterate the discussions from back in February and March. Again, a lot of that information is up on the website, and I think all those meetings were recorded, and you can get those through the website as well. But that's kind of the simple answer of how we get in and out. I also heard a question about how late fees are calculated. It's 10% assessed on the outstanding balance, and so that's how they're calculated. And then I also heard, do people get their deposits back when they move? And the answer is yes. Nancy, I don't know if there's anything to add on the deposits for people moving in the city. I think there might be some nuance there that I'm missing.
I was just going to touch on something too for you, Councilman Owens. That is something that the deposits and your information or the concerns that you have on that is also found on the Thursday packet of the ordinances that we're bringing forward to council in December, and some changes we want to make into the deposits as well, of waiving deposits for good credit history and so forth. So that information is there for you as well, and I'll be happy to answer any questions on that if you have any, sir.
Nancy, I understand that, and on that, and been on council for a pretty good bit of time. We got several millions of dollars that are outstanding right now that should be collected. I don't know. We had looked at it once before when people leave and it's outstanding. It's something within the state that we can allow them or give out information which they can't get water at the next place they're going to. But we have a lot of money that's out there right now. It's been there for a number of years on there. But again, the concern is how do we get out of this mess that the city's in right now and build back some kind of trust with the people that live in this city? We have to come up with something to be able to work with that now and see what what has been given out within the information tonight to that. But it's just not really penetrating out to all the customers that we have, and it's causing a big problem with the city and the people that live within the city of Pearland, and it's going beyond that area now within the other cities surrounding Pearland. So if we can come up with something, how we got there, how we get out, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Member Owens, I'll just add a little bit. This graph here shows the timeframes to get in and the path to get out. And you can see the gap in what was consumed but not billed popped up in June of 2019 to the 40 days, and then that expounded from there. And from January went to 60 and then up to 70, and now we're coming down from that. So that shows the glide path to get out.
Councilmember Moore, did you have anything to question or ask?
No, I think everybody pretty much covered everything. I did want to find out just one thing. Councilmember Carbone spoke in behalf of where the antennas were disconnected and a resident would get a zero read, then somebody would come out, reconnect it, and then all of that data would upload and then show the usage from that whole time period. So my question is, are we reaching out to those residents proactively, or are we sending them the bill and waiting for them to call us on why they got a zero read and then all of a sudden they got a double or triple bill?
No, sir, we would reach out to them. This is something that is relatively new to us right now because of the AMI system, but we work for those customers. So we would want to reach out to them. And when this occurs, and if there is one that we didn't reach out to, I'd like to send my personal apologies to them. But no, our goal would be to reach out to them and not to bill them for that whole amount, because that's not something that is their fault for it. So we want to make sure that we bill them for that just 1 month period.
Okay.
Yes, does that relate to the zero reads we're trying to pick up now? Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you. And my other comment is, I'm really interested to find out what Raftillis comes back with in their investigation on all of this. That was the whole point of getting them involved and having them come do what they're doing, is to get us some answers. So I'm very interested to find out what they present to us. Unfortunately, I won't be around much for that meeting, but I'll be trying to listen in to see what they come back with.
Okay, so Nancy, tonight you need a little bit of direction on this final bill processing, the true up calculation. We'll have the ordinances up in December and January, but you need some guidance on this final bill processing first, correct?
Yes, sir. Please, you can look over all 3 examples and talk it out. And I do want that guidance, that consensus from the council of which direction we need to go to effective from this point forward.
Okay.
Mayor, can I suggest maybe we take the time, and that way we can may I suggest that we tackle each of the issues one at a time as a council?
Yeah.
Clear direction. We're not muddling the conversations of all of them at once, and maybe not providing staff the clarity that I think that they need.
Yeah, that was the suggestion I was going to say, was let's tackle one at a time. This final bill processing, which one of these, and don't rehash the whole thing, but which one of these, if the 3 build cases to me seems to be their actual bill. I mean, if you actually go back in and do it and not have an overage amount, because of the tiering, it seems to be what is their actual bill. If I heard you correct as you lined it out.
I can jump in on this one. That's correct. I mean, in a nutshell, I would add one caveat that it does not include mud fees or garbage, which are monthly, so there's no arrearage there. But yeah, I think the best way to look at it is that 3 build bases is what would the bill be from water and sewer if they never moved out, and then the 1 build base would just be removing those 2 bases from that.
Okay. So just for you guys to look at it, that would be their actual bill. So I think you look at that as that is the real bill. I don't like the 1 build case. To me, it's the 3 build or the current process that we're going through.
No, I agree. I mean, the 3 build bases seems like that's the most fair to both who's moving out, but also, I mean, this is an enterprise fund. So
right.
If we were to keep it artificially low at the 152 at the current process, then that effectively says that current ratepayers are subsidizing those that move out. So from everything presented tonight, I think the 3 build bases, that methodology is the most fair and correct way to go. Has Raf Tellis opined to any of these 3?
So we had a pretty lengthy conversation about the kind of methodology behind each one of these, and from Raf Tellis's perspective, all things operating as they should be, or will be at the end of the 3230 plan. It's 1 bill per month, 1 base per month, straightforward. The 3 build bases, that customer would pay 1 base rate per service period that they lived in the city of Pearland. That would be what they would be paying. I think the response to that for the 1 build would be that they would pay the 1 base rate, yes, for all 3 of those periods, but that would keep them within 12 base rates in a 12-month period, because they're paying 1 final bill, if that makes sense. So there's one way of looking at it where the 3 build base rates is more about the service period, whereas the 1 build base rate is kind of keeping with the mantra, a customer is only paying 12 base rates per year, period.
Okay, so Mr. McCarter, real quick. So the 3 build bases, basically that's 13. That's based on 13 billings or 13 meter reads a year. Right?
Not necessarily. It's based on the service periods as they stand. So it would be 32. I mean, that would be technically less.
Well, moving forward, it'd be based on 32, but in the past, it would be based on the 28-day meter read. And I guess that may be the problem in understanding that is, before now, the service period was 28 days, not 32. So now we've moved to 32. So this is moving forward. It's not necessarily based on 13 months. Okay.
Let me see if I can or try and get some clarity. So just so I understand, what people are in the rears for is the water that was measured to have been consumed, right? And that's what they owe us to catch up on. But they were never not billed a base rate, correct? So there's nobody who's in the rears on garbage, correct? And there's nobody who's in the rear on the sewer base rate because they paid the base rate for each month that they were billed. The only thing that we're behind on is the water. So if we're giving them the final bill and we give them 3 bills for essentially a 3-month period, the way I said, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, we're catching them up on water, and then we're billing them base rates for 2 months that they're not living here. Because if we do 3 bill months, we're saying, hey, you paid in June for water, and then you're paying for the 2 other months, but we're really paying, they're catching up with June in these 3 months, from June to current. I guess in this case it would be September to current. They're catching up to us with water, but we're charging them base rates essentially, and I know I'm oversimplifying, essentially for months that they're not living here. Because I feel like if they're caught up with all of their base rates, the most fair way to do it is say, we're going to bill you 3 months, but we're only going to charge you the base rate for the last month that you were here. And then the other 2 bills will just be to catch you up on the water. And that's what I think what the 1 bill basis represents. I agree with you 100%, Tony, in that the water bill, water sanitary, it's unique in that the customers are also the owners of the utility. And we need to make sure that the neighbor is not subsidizing me or whomever, the person that lives next to them, by having them not be charged for what was fairly consumed and was fairly should have been assessed to them. But I don't know. I'm just not understanding how we could get to charging 2 additional base rates for individuals while they're catching up on water when they were never behind in the base rate. Maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say.
John, are you gonna explain that or what? Because we're not, it's for those months of service. I mean, John, can you help out?
Yeah. So the way the billing goes out is you get 1 base rate per service period. You know, that service period, to Mayor Cole's point, it was 28 days before we started the 32/30 plan. Now it's 32 days. So that the base rate, as we bill it out, is designed to cover the fixed cost during that service period. So, you know, the argument can be made, you know, you still owe the fixed cost portion of that service period, if that makes sense.
So you would say that we, for garbage and for sanitary, we are behind?
No, not for garbage. You know, for sewer, you know, I understand the point of, you know, the winter quarterly average is a fixed rate. You know, but if you're under that, it's still based on metered consumption. So I would say that we have an arrearage there as well. And Nancy, help me out if I got that wrong.
Can you go back 2 slides? There's a actual bill for the 3 bill bases. Maybe that'll help.
Yeah.
That.
So in this example, the sanitary sewer base 2274 is carried over for 3 months. Prior to that, they were paying 2274 every month. So are we saying that the base rate for the sanitary for that 2274 is to collect for the additional 4 days that they lost in aggregate over the time period that we were collecting in the arrears?
Can you rephrase that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's for 32 days. If you look at the 3rd row.
Yeah. So I get that. So are we confident that when we charge this base rate for December and January on this bill, that we are charging them a base rate for sanitary sewer that we feel confident they used?
Yes, because that winter quarter average is based on their usage. Nancy, help me out on that if I'm wrong. But that winter quarter average is based on metered usage.
It is, and that's from October 1st. It would take the lesser amounts, whether it's the actual water usage or the customer's determined amounts. Yeah, and this is and looking at it this way, the 3 billed bases are actually, if the customer was still there, that's what they would be billed for. I realize you're going back for 28 days and 32 days, but we're looking at the time frame from the last billed reading to the most current reading, or to the move-out reading that the customer's giving us. So this is the time frame that the customer is there at the location.
Okay, so that clarifies what I was asking, because my confusion was what the base rate was charging for and whether that was essentially in the rears. So if it's actually to collect for what we believe they would fairly have been charged for, then I agree that the 3 bill basis is probably the most appropriate. As long as we're not charging them for anything that we can't justifiably say is definitively their responsibility. Again, we don't want anybody subsidizing the other person, but we want to be as fair to everybody about this, because again, we use the term the city all the time. It's the city's water, blah, blah, blah. The city is the citizens. This is intended to provide a utility to the citizens that they can be confident in is clean and safe. So it is theirs, and we need to ensure that we're managing it for them appropriately, and we can't not charge people what they fairly owe. With respect to, I know I passed this question on to the city manager, but with respect to getting deposits, a second deposit to move in, or and this was brought to my attention, if somebody is a divorcee and they're staying in the same location, but they're having to move the bill over from one to the other. I think I know of at least one person who got caught with that. So if there's any justification to say, hey, look, they're not moving, or they're still using, or they're the same customer, if we can avoid the headache of trying to make them pay a new deposit and avoid that headache of having to inventory a new deposit, I think that would be the best way to treat our customers.
And just to say something on that too, Councilman Perez, that is one of the changes that are coming on the ordinance itself. If you have a good credit rating, you have a good credit history with the city or with your previous utility company, that would be significant enough for us to say you don't need to put down a deposit on something. Someone who's divorced and they carry that good credit history, the primary person on that would be the one that we get the deposit, if they have one, onto their next location. And if they have a good credit history at that location, the other person's not going to pay a deposit, is what I would look at it. So yes, sir.
Yeah, let's keep on final bill processing for just a second and see if other council members have a thought on that.
Yeah, so if technically we're saying we're 2 months behind, then the 3 bill basis works. It's fair, it's the most true. So I'm okay with the 3 bill basis.
Okay. Councilmember Orlando, comments?
I don't have anything additional right now. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Owens?
This is Councilman Little. I like the 3 bill base also. I think it's the most fair. Makes the most sense.
Mayor, we have one of the speakers is actually emailing us live as the meeting goes on. Maybe to avoid future confusion, can we address a question that they brought up in the email? They're saying that the city website charter indicates that the base water is a monthly charge, not 28 days. So is the base rate a monthly charge for calendar January 1st to calendar February 1st, independent of the days, or is it accrued by the number of days for which we measured the meter?
So it's billed and accrued based on the service period.
Okay. So if it was 28 days, the base rate, as you said before, just to reiterate, because the question's coming in, just to reiterate, it is, if it's 28 days, it is adjusted to 28 days. If it's 32 days, it's slightly higher. Correct?
Yeah, the base rate was adjusted upward with the 3230 plan based on the number of days. Yes.
Okay. So I think with that explanation, the 3 bill is probably the most for citizens.
I guess I still go back to, where's Raf Tillis on this? I mean, we consulted with them. We hired them to be the experts. And I feel like we're all damn near all the blind leading the blind here, trying to figure this out. And I'm not getting an aha from anybody. I think we're all leaning toward 3 bill bases, but I want an expert's opinion on this, because clearly we haven't been able to figure this stuff out in the past internally.
Well, we could leave it as is and just punt all of this direction until after Retellus has had an opportunity to opine. I think what staff's trying to do is maybe get out ahead of some complaints that we have relayed to them. But
I'm afraid that we're going to be creating a bigger mess than it is trying to solve this playing whack-a-mole. So I'd be in favor of putting this as an item for Raftillis to discuss and opine on when they're up on January 11th.
Okay, this and all 3 matters. You want to just wait until opines on all of them?
Well, we can keep talking through the other ones, but for this final bill processing, I'd feel more comfortable than that.
All right. Well, let's talk to the other ones, and then maybe we can.
And I believe the second one corresponds with the first one, was the guidance that was with to do both kind of the same way. So maybe we skip to the 3230 plan dates.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if this is Raptellis's scope or it's within their scope, reviewing our processing, I would think we need to. And I do agree with what Councilmember Prev said. I think we're trying to get some answers because we have people moving in and out of the city, you know, on a monthly basis, and their final bill is here. So, but I think staff's got some direction on how we handle that until we get a answer from Raptellis.
Yeah, but Mayor, just to be clear, you know, we're trying to get some answers because, as you said, people are moving out, and the current practice is the current practice and based on long standings. So,
yeah.
And there's nothing to say that if we can't, if we do this tonight and Raptellis comes back and says, no, you idiots, y'all screwed up, we can't change. It's as powerful as the next ordinance that we pass. So
right.
I don't want, at least I appreciate what Member Carbone is saying, and
yeah,
I hate rushing to a decision, but I do believe we've identified there's a problem. We identified that there is at least some movement to a solution, imperfect as it could potentially be. And if we find out and we can give it to Raptellis, check our work, make sure our math's right, and they come back and say, no, you missed, you didn't carry this 4 over here, then we can modify the ordinance at that time. But I would hate to carry on past this meeting knowing that we're doing something that we don't necessarily agree with, as opposed to assuming that it could be.
Well, but again, perhaps this is something Raptellis can give us a direction and answer on before the December meeting.
Yeah, I was going to say that the advantage is if we get some consensus, I think there's enough comfort, and we got 2 weeks plus 2 weeks before we bring you a first reading, so we can prep that up and get some feedback by then. No.
Right.
So perhaps we can give staff a direction of where we would like to go, and then we can give Raptellis an opportunity to let us know if that's their direction.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. The 3 build basis, I mean, it sounds like it makes sense, but it'd be good to get some kind of feedback from Raptellis on, is this the right thing that we're doing or not?
Right. So are we holding on true up calculation? Are we going to jump down to the 3230 plan due dates? Seems like the true up is a part of final bill processing.
John, Nancy, would you?
Said, why can't we just table this and get them to follow up on the questions that were asked tonight before we vote on anything?
You're not voting on anything tonight.
We're not voting on any. Yeah, we're not really voting on anything. Just trying to give them some direction. But I think staff should be getting the direction, you know, on the final bill processing to run by Raptellis. How does that affect the true up calculation?
So I can jump in real quick. I think it's if the direction is to wait on the final bill processing for us to get something from Raptellis to lend some clarity. The true up plan is very similar in principle. I mean, it's somebody paying a lump sum amount for their arrearage, and
right.
Just for consistency's sake, I think it's best if those two or staff collectively thinks it's best that those two take the same approach. So if we do one bill for one, we should do one bill or one base for the other. So they're very similar in nature. So I would advise, if we're going to wait on the final bill, to wait on that true up as well.
Okay. 3230 plan due dates. Where's the slide on that one again?
So, John, the suggestion is to get a consensus that from the council that our recommendation here for those outlier dates, because the nature of those, because of 32.
I'm sorry.
So we do have a recommendation or suggestion here, and we're looking for some consensus towards that.
That's right. So yeah, I think the crux of the issue presented here is that when you follow the 3230 plan, because we're not doing just one bill per month, it's one bill every 30 days. Over the course of the plan, you're going to run into more than one due date in a month. And, you know, we can't push that in perpetuity because eventually you run up to the next due date. So we need some direction on what we want to do. I know the recommendation here is to not assess any base charges, not assess the monthly mud or garbage costs, and just do the usage portion or the non-base usage for those in any month that would have 2 due dates in it.
So mathematically, how many times are we going to run into that a year?
Twice.
And we can make the adjustments.
Actually, it's 3 times, John. It'll be there's 2 in one billing cycle, and there's 1 in in another billing cycle. So it's 2 billing cycles that this happens in.
Right, but it's
but a single customer, how many times will a single account be faced with this, regardless of the billing cycle?
Oh, okay. Yes, sir. It'll happen twice in one billing cycle and at least once in 2 other billing cycles.
Okay.
If you go back to slide 8, I mean, that shows you the plan and the dates.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I was trying to look at that and see, on cycle 14, there's 2 in October of 21.
Yep.
But I guess where's the most pressing one? And I hate to just keep punting stuff, but we don't need to decide something and that's 6 months out. I mean, I half believe that Raftillis might toss out the 3230, or say once AMI goes live, we do a big catch up and we're done. So I guess on this slide, where's the first pain point?
The first pain point on that, Councilmember Carbone, would be in cycle 11. And that one would be, if you look at this chart here, that would fall on the bill date of June 7th on cycle cycle 11. And the due date on that would be July 1st. And then their next bill, which will go out on July 7th, their due date would be July 30th. So that would be the first pain point that you're speaking of.
Maybe stick with the bill date on cycle 11. I'm just having trouble seeing that.
Yes, sir. Cycle 11, the bill date is June 7th.
Of 21?
Of 2021, yes, sir. So where that red line is on the very far left-hand side, if you go down, that's a real date, bill date. There it is, June 7th. It's in the, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th one down.
Again, that's 8 months from now.
Right.
Why? I guess what's the pressure from staff to get a decision on this right now tonight?
Questions that have been raised by customers themselves and wanted direction on that, sir.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I'm glad we're addressing it. Again, I'd like to push this back to the experts, and I mean they could come to us and scrap the whole thing, and if it's not going to occur until June of 21, then I don't know. I don't want to sit here and make knee-jerk reactions after one presentation, change up our plan, and cause more work for everybody and more confusion.
Yep.
I agree with Councilman Carbone. We're spending a lot of money on these consultants. We went through a hell of a screening process to pick these guys out and let them do their job, and let's listen to what they have to say before we start undermining their efforts.
But essentially, we're telling the customers who are telling us about these complaints that we're gonna wait to address them.
Well, we're only talking about 6 weeks.
We don't know that yet. We need to wait. We're waiting for Raftillis to give us their understanding. If they do come up and say, hey, it's a 3230 plan, we're going to scrap the 3230 plan and go with a different plan, then we're back to the drawing board trying to come up with new problems that haven't been identified. I mean, no matter what plan we adopt, there's going to be these quirky little intricacies that need to be addressed that maybe affect 3 or 4 customers a month, maybe less. You know, I won't argue against it if that's the will of council, but I just don't I feel like we've identified problems. Our customer base has told us they want us to do something about it. Even if it is temporary, we pass an ordinance the next meeting. We can undo that ordinance when we have better information. It's not like we chisel all this in stone.
I agree, but we're talking about a problem that we can see on the calendar 8 months from now. And I think punting it 6 weeks, in my opinion, is fine. I expect Raf Tillis to come with some answers.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Other council members weigh in?
Yeah, I'd like to punt it and have Raftillis come back. I mean, with us making a decision tonight, it doesn't, I mean, it's not going to harm anything. I mean, again, we're talking about, next June. So, I mean, we've got time to make changes.
Unless somebody moves out tomorrow.
Well,
I mean, if that's the case, then they're gonna actually save by us taking no action.
Correct.
Yeah, but what we talked about before is being fair to all the other customers.
Right.
So they save, but all the other customers are now subsidizing.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll go with it. Let's do it. Let's punt.
The truth is, I think every one of these should have been run through Raftelis before it comes to council anyway. And I get it. We're trying to work with the public and the issues that are arising. And I think our staff is trying to get the best answers they possibly can out to the public. So, but again, some of these, how many, potentially have unintended consequences, and we got into this with unintended consequences. So I think, listen to the experts would be good. I think we're not voting on anything and giving a vote on it today anyway. We've got an ordinance change coming up in December. So if somebody might moved out tomorrow, there's not a direction from council that applies to that anyway, because the ordinance isn't up for another few weeks. So if we can get some of these answers by Raftelis before then, perhaps we can cut this down from a January meeting and getting some answers to maybe even December. So hopefully we can do that. Is that all we've got from council on these issues? Obviously, we've got ordinance changes coming. Is there any other questions or discussions so we can move on with our agenda?
Is that directed to me, sir?
That just council in general. Just we're into the other questions and discussion. Are we done with the topic for the night? Sorry, Councilmember Prev.
No, I think we've given staff instruction, which is the purpose of it.
Right. All right. Well, let's move on in our agenda, and we'll move to new business item number 1. And where are we? Mr. Carbone, would you place that on the table?
Certainly. Consideration and possible action. First reading of ordinance number 1595-1. So moved.
Second. More.
We have a motion and a second. We're into staff report. Staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is our first budget amendment of the year. We do this every year at the start of the fiscal year, and it's primarily carryovers, items that were authorized and budgeted for prior fiscal year FY20, but were for whatever reasons not completed or in process. So we need to move those expenditures formally into the 21. And we do have several items that we have identified that we have adequate financial resources and see the needs that have come up since or now able to complete. So we're going to recommend we incorporate those as well. So Eric Roche, our budget officer, is here to make the presentation. Take it away, Eric. Muted.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. I'm sorry about that. All right. Let me switch my screens real quick. Sorry, that had to reset everything. All right, my name is Eric Roche. I'm the budget officer for the City of Pearland. I apologize for that little bit of issue that we just had. I'm going to try and go quickly through this because I know this meeting's already running a little long. So tonight we're looking at budget amendment number 1. We'll talk about what a carryover is and is not. We'll take a quick look at some unaudited preliminary fund balances for the end of fiscal year 20. And specifically, we'll be looking at carryovers and also some new appropriations for fiscal year 21 in the general fund, the water and sewer enterprise funds, and I'll briefly touch on other funds as well. All of this has been covered in the memo that went out last Thursday, and the attachments include much more detail on what is being carried over. So carryovers are the process of recognizing expenditures and revenues from last year and bringing them forward into this year. It's a standard practice. We see it across all governments in the state of Texas, as well as across the country. These are for things like goods and services that were ordered in the past fiscal year, but haven't been received. So think of like a vehicle that was ordered in August, but it's got to be put together and assembled still. We haven't received it. We're not going to get it till this next fiscal year. We're moving that forward, that whole budget forward into the current fiscal year from last fiscal year. This is also something that we will do. We do carryovers when items were budgeted, but they were pushed back due to delays, COVID-19 being one of the reasons for some delays. However, we're not bringing forward anything under $1,000. We just ask departments to cover those expenditures themselves. We don't put things back into the budget that were cut out of the FY21 budget. So when City Council asked us to cut professional development across the board, this does not put that back into place among any other cuts that were made. We also don't include anything like operating and supply accounts, so pencils, paper, or recurring expenses like a software subscription as part of carryovers. So these are all one-time things. So I know this looks like a lot. I'll walk you through it. On the left here, we have the FY20 amended budget. This is where we thought we would end up, but this includes COVID. So this is not the adopted budget. At the beginning of FY20, we had adopted a budget. Mid-year, COVID-19 rolls around. We slashed our revenue expectations. We really reined in expenditures because we expected that to affect the economy. And the good news tonight that I get to bring forward is it hasn't affected Pearland as much as we had initially feared. It's certainly affected other communities in the area, though, and we're keeping a close eye on it. So first, looking at revenues, and I've done the math over here on the right to make it easy, came in $3 million above what we were expecting. This is largely due to sales tax coming in higher, sales tax collections coming in higher than it budgeted, and mostly due to our big box retail stores showing remarkable resiliency. This doesn't speak to the economy's health across all sectors or sizes of business. It's simply the gross total of sales tax revenue has remained resilient during COVID-19. On the expenditure side, we thought we'd spend $84 million. We came in at $82 million. When you take that $2 million that we were underneath our expenditure budget plus the $3 million in revenues, we're looking at about $5 million on the positive side of things, which brings us, we thought we'd end the year FY20 at $5 million over policy. We're actually ending at about $10 million over policy, which is a 2-month reserve policy. So we have $695,000 in carryovers coming forward. And this is that new beginning fund balance that we just walked through and updated on the last slide. We're going to take these $695,000, add them into the expenditure line, but we also have some new appropriations that I'll talk about real quickly. This budget amendment contains $968,000 in new appropriations just in the general fund. This is $450,000 for traffic signals, $250,000 for Fire Station 2 repairs, $200,000 for comprehensive plan updates, $35,000 for a bucket truck rental, and $32,000 for the Independence Park holiday display. We take that $968,000 plus the amount of carryover, bring it over to our expense line. We run our numbers again, and now we have our amended budget for FY21. in the general fund. We project ending about $8.4 million over our reserve policies. Another way to look at reserve policies is to look at the number of days of cash on hand. We know that the 2-month policy we've been ahead of for some time now, as you can see. So we have a target of 90 days of cash on hand. And you can see we began the year thinking we'd end up at about 83 days of cash on hand. By the time all this money matriculates through the system and these additional appropriations plus carryovers are made, we believe we will end up at 95 days of cash on hand above our target of 90 days. So we are still adding money to our reserves even after these additional appropriations are being made, and we are above the 90-day target. Moving on to the enterprise fund. I'm not going to walk through this one because I think it's much simpler than what we just discussed, but we initially thought that we would end up at $27.7 million over our policy due to revenue variance of $36,000 on the positive. So we really hit that one right on the nose when we came to our budget estimates, and a variance of $1.7 million on the expenditure side. This is mostly due to vacancies and software licenses and water production. We ended up with a $1.8 million coming into the fund that we hadn't expected. This is a good thing. That means that the amount of over policy goes from 27.7 million to 29.5 million. Our cash reserve ratio at the beginning of FY20's amended budget was 76%. And if we go forward, we will see here that we have $839,000 in carryovers. We do not have any additional appropriations in this fund for tonight's budget amendment. And after we add the $839,000 to our expenditures and do the math, we come out to being $20.5 million over policy, or 71% of our cash, having a cash reserve ratio of 71%, sorry. Looking real quick at other funds, we have $700,000 coming in from the general fund and flowing out of the capital projects fund. That is for that fire station and the traffic signals project that we talked about a minute ago. We have $16 million in our grant funds that are being rolled over. I know that's an astounding number. It's mostly to do with how many grants we have. We have a lot of disaster recovery and CARES grants, and they all have specific rules about how they're carried over. We have Joel on the line tonight, and he can help us answer any specific questions about that. We talked about enterprise fund, motor pool fund. We are budgeting a $2.7 million expense tonight, and we are also recognizing $620,000 in additional revenue coming in from the TERS. These motor pool funds are in addition to the allocation already made in the fiscal year 21 budget, which included replacing all the Crown Vics that remained. That was 17 Crown Vics being replaced, in addition to the 2 new cop cars for the DDACT officers that were brought on in FY21. The balance of these will, the balance of this additional expense that you're seeing here tonight will go to the fire department and the public works department to give them much needed equipment and vehicles. The infrastructure and redevelopment fund, which is where we pay for our streets and sidewalk repairs, so anything that's not a capital project essentially, is carrying over $912,000. It's a large amount, but this is largely due to delays on projects with the county due to COVID-19. And then finally, our PEDC fund is carrying over $1.8 million just because their projects tend to take a few years to accomplish. Next steps on this are we're having our first reading tonight, and the second reading is scheduled for December 7th. And if now is a good time for any questions if you have any. I know I went through that real quick, so please let me know if I missed anything or if you'd like clarification on anything.
Hey, Eric, before we turn over to council, can you go back to slide 10?
Yes, sir. Can you tell me what slide that is? I don't have the numbers up.
They're in the lower right there. The enterprise fund.
There we go. I got you, sir.
Yep. So I just want to be clear on that amount over policy. The enterprise fund actually has, as council knows through the budget process, is a couple of different ratios. And so that may be the cash, just on the days of expenditures. But we also have those bond coverage and cash reserve ratios that have to be met. Yep. So we don't have 29 million or 27 million, anything close to that free we have to meet those. So it's complicated with that because of those other requirements. So I just want to make that clear. Sorry, I didn't catch that in the run through. So thanks, Eric.
No, that's my fault. I'm still relatively new at this. I apologize for not being clear.
Okay. So thank you, Eric, for that. And Clay, throw this open to, I think, Woody, are you asking for the floor? I can hear you. All right. So we'll put this out to council for your questions and comments.
That's good. We figured he'd probably be traveling, couldn't get in touch with him today, so that would have worked out good.
Hey, Woody, you talking to somebody? Well, Eric, thanks for the presentation. If you go to slide 8, right now the policy is 2 months. I believe we're headed to a 3-month policy or goal for the rating agencies. At what point do we say we're there and stop showing the 2 months and start kicking out the full 3-month reserve? And maybe that'll be something for the next agenda item. But I think we're headed down the right path. And now that we've got the 95 days, I think it might be the time to do it.
Yes, sir. That is where we're headed. This slide is kind of one of those transitional slides where once we will make those adjustments in the future as the budget cycle continues, and we'll move from talking about a 2-month policy to a 90-day policy. We just separate them now during the transition.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, I kind of second what Member Carbone said. I think, once we get over 90 days, we need to stop measuring it as the amount of days of cash on hand and just assume the 90 days is then bare minimum, and we can just go to number of days or percentage over policy, and not make it appear as if that 90, similar to what I was saying in the enterprise fund, not appear as if that money is really available to us. Because our bond rating is dependent on this, the cash on hand as well.
So that's two month, and I think Member Carbone was alluding to this, is in the policy. So until we update that, we're obligated. But I hear you. We can bring that either. I don't think you want to wait till next budget cycle, but whether it be in February or some other time, we can bring that to you as a revised financial policy.
Fair enough. And I think there's some other things associated with maybe future mid-year allocations and policies that we can talk about the next item.
Okay.
On this 968,000 of appropriations for FY21, are those expenditures that were budgeted in FY20 but were not incurred? Or are these new ones?
This $695,000, that is the figure for items that were budgeted in FY20 and are being rolled over to FY21. This $968,000 are new appropriations, meaning they had not been budgeted for FY21, but we're appropriating them tonight into the budget through this amendment.
Okay, well, why would close to $500,000 of traffic signal upgrades been omitted from the budget in FY21 if these are things that we need?
So remember, Little, I don't know if you were at that meeting, but it was in the financing from the bonds. And so there was thoughts that we should be paying for cash. So we still need to do it. So it was that's why it's the same project, but it's just how we're paying for it now out of the general fund. Correct me if I'm wrong, Eric and John, but that's what I think that 50 is.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, Councilmember Orlando. Anything?
No, I appreciate the presentation and don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, good deal. Councilmember Moore.
Nothing, Mayor. Thank you.
Good deal. Councilmember Owens. Okay. Okay.
I'm okay.
Go ahead. Okay. I guess one quick question. Go back to the list of new appropriations, FY. Thank you. Was there thought, I know the traffic signal upgrades and the fire station 2 repairs and the need for those, but were there considerations made instead of comprehensive plan updates and some of this bucket truck rental to go towards streets and sidewalk repair, just because that fund is always underfunded. We talk about it every year. If this is found cash or additional resources, was there thought about beefing that up?
If I could, really, we needed the bucket truck rentals a must do.
Okay.
The comp plan, that's a scaled down version that we contract out, but it was pushed over from last fiscal year.
Okay.
But we need to keep up with that and do that 5 years. And so really obligated to that and the holiday display you're aware of. So we're going to come back. We'll come back next mid-year for the streets and sidewalks. We got a good system now with that separate infrastructure fund. And so I'd suggest that we challenge ourselves to spend what we have in there and then look where we're at and come back to you mid-year.
Okay, good. All right. I don't see or hear any other comments or questions. So with that, Ms. Roan, I would call for the vote.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Little?
Aye.
Member Moore?
Aye.
Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
The motion carries 6-0 to adopt, to approve the first reading of ordinance number 1595-1.
All right. Good deal. So we'll move on to new business item number 2. Mr. Perez, would you put that on the table? I guess it's just input and discussion.
Yeah.
So no real, sorry about that.
Yep,
So
that's right.
we're into number 2. So Clay, what staff report on that?
Right. So traditionally, we've had good, I think, discussions in our February early budget input, and we've continually tried to improve that process. This year's another tweak to that process, and that is to bring the item to you formally at an open meeting for discussion and input. We've done that electronically and gotten good feedback, but just wanted the opportunity to highlight these even more. These would be the things that are on the radar that council's mentioned in past or we've identified for our February budget input. We just got done with the last budget, but we spend a good chunk of the holidays drafting these white papers, and so this is a presentation of the topics. So John or Eric, I don't know if you'd like to highlight that a little bit better for me.
Just to jump in, I think you covered most of the points, Mr. Pearson, but really the point of the session, as Mr. Pearson covered, is just to set the agenda for the upcoming budget, but also talk about, things that are coming up in the midterm, 2-3 years, and then frankly, in the long term, obviously, Councilmember Carbone brings up a good point about the policies. We've talked about that here before. The list that you see here has been vetted through staff in all departments and the city managers, obviously. So I had shared this out informally, but just looking for any additions, questions, comments on the form, the format, and anything else with the session.
Okay, open for discussion, council members.
I'll just throw one thing out there. One, I appreciate the request that I made for Independence Park and for the sidewalk, a capital project for the sidewalks to be included. One thing I think may be worthy of discussion is in our February meeting, do we develop a policy where we have at least we're giving guidance to staff as far as what we want to do with mid-year allocations when they operate in the positive. I think each year y'all provide us what y'all believe is the best allocation. Sometimes there's a little push and pull on that, but maybe if we gave you guidance to say, look, we automatically want this to go to streets, or we automatically want to go this to that, or we want to continue as is, and maybe alleviate a little bit of that push and pull. I think that's worthy of discussion. all I have.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Carbone, anything?
I appreciate agenda item number 1 for that format and citizen comments to make sure that they got the ability to speak up. And besides that, it's a good list. Grows every year. I look forward to diving into it, but I think it encompasses everything that I see.
Good. Councilmember Orlando?
Yeah, just a couple of quick things and maybe one additional item or kind of an item that ties several of these together. First, I think this is a great list, especially appreciate 1 on activity-based costing and 3 on the strategic data initiative. I think those are going to be steps in the right direction. Also, just want to highlight item 2 on strategic planning. This is something that I heard Mayor Cole talk a lot about in his race about the need to get everybody in city administration and the councilman and the mayor together and set a strategy and set a plan and make sure everything we're doing, whether that's council agenda items or whether that's who we're appointing to boards and commissions or whether that's how we do our performance reviews, are all driving towards the same plan. And I don't think we're always doing that. I think maybe we're getting better, but I think there's an opportunity there and a big chance to get together and decide what that vision is. And in terms of tying a few of these items together into what might be a new item or something in terms of a white paper to consider going forward, as we all know, the way that we maintain our infrastructure is not sustainable. And that's not just a Pearland issue. That's an issue that maybe most cities are facing, but especially ours. We built a lot of stuff in the last 20 years with just our huge growth rates. And it's always more fun to build new stuff than to maintain the stuff that we already have. It's not sexy to spend a bunch of money on maintaining our infrastructure, but just in the conversations we have every single budget cycle about streets and sidewalks, we see it's not sustainable. Just if we wanted not to improve our streets and sidewalks, but keep them the same, we need to be spending at least $4 million more than we are now. And we have these discussions each time, it just came up, like, could we transfer this sidewalk? We have it every budget cycle. What pennies can we scrape up to move over to streets and sidewalks? And the honest reality is, if we're being honest with ourselves, we're never going to scrimp enough pennies to be able to pay for our streets and sidewalks. And not just that, but this very expensive water infrastructure that we're putting in, our city's fleet of vehicles, which is, we say fleet, but it's police cars, that's fire engines, that's engineering vehicles and parks vehicles that are driving around and keeping our city going. City facilities. It's not sustainable. And the biggest thing is we don't know even how much we have in the way of assets that have to be maintained. So there's a good item here in terms of the capital asset management that I think is good, but some things that I would propose maybe for a deeper dive in advance of February's discussion in terms of what could a systematic approach look like of how are we going to fund these things that are chronically underfunded year after year. We're going to have this large amount of taxable value in our PERS coming back online to the city of Pearland in the next, in this decade. And so getting ahead of that, I think we can be thoughtful about first doing this capital asset management system and understanding what all it is that we have to maintain. And then saying when that value comes back online, let's deliberately and thoughtfully, before we get that new value and wonder, what are we going to do with those tax dollars? Let's allocate some of that to these things that we know constantly and in a recurring way are going to need funding. So that's a huge complicated issue. It's not one that I fleshed out or that I think has been fleshed out fully, but I do think that that's a very viable option. And in a way, it's like one of the few things that could be a game changer in terms of sustainably funding these things that we all know need a source of sustainable funding. And so I think tying together a lot of these things, if we could look at what would that look like to earmark some significant proportion of that value that comes back online for these maintenance items that we continue to discuss, if that makes sense, John and Eric.
Yeah, I have to agree a little bit with Councilman Orlando on that. we need to really prioritize and look at what we're doing in our CIP budget and not be building new when it's not absolutely necessary, and start looking at our infrastructure that we have. And that's not just streets and sidewalks, but that's city facilities that we have also. Some of our facilities are somewhat aging, and the cost of building materials is not getting cheaper. It seems like Texas is one of the states where everybody's wanting to move to, and we just keep building and building and building, and supply and demand. So building materials are expensive because it's needed here. So I think we need to prioritize what we're building new, and really focus and look on what we have and how to improve that and maintain it going forward.
Yeah, it's a good thought, and it's an expensive one. We got to figure it out. Councilmember Little, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, on
Or-
item
Go
number
ahead,
2,
Woody.
talking about it. Nothing's been said about the mayor and council to set city goals. I would like to be able to put that back in or into the stage of this of the mayor and city council to meet and discuss the goals for the upcoming year. I know we get stuff from the staff, and that's good, and we can make the decision on a go and no go on that. But I think it should be, as it has in the past, that we'll do the goal setting for the city and have the mayor and council to do that. And within reading this, there was an item in there of discussing about how through going through this virus that the employees enjoyed working from home, and it seems like that's going to be discussed further, a possibility of doing working from home rather than working from the city facility. And when we're looking at that, I'd like to see what the cost savings to the city would be in order for people to be able to work from home, and then also, to look at the concerns of what may happen on insurance coverage and things of that nature of time off to do that in case, working from home and one of them got hurt or whatever while they were there, if the insurance coverage, for that. So I don't know how far that has been going into looking at that, but currently we're doing the, 410s, I guess it is, of being able to work 4 days a week, 10 days or 10 hours a day on that. So I think, a little bit more discussion needs to be had on some of those items like that. But and for the other part of the mayor and council, I think it's pertinent that we do that from the city standpoint of having the mayor and council set in with the city manager and discuss the goal setting for the upcoming year with the city.
Councilman Little?
Yeah, I think the council members before me have proposed some good ideas. I think the staff does a great job of putting the budget together. Seems like every year since I've been on council, they've won awards for their budgets. Obviously, there's always room for improvement. And like I said, anything we can do to improvement, I'll support. That's all I have right now.
All right, good. Yeah, I have discussed with staff about maybe doing some goal setting opportunities with the council along with staff, as well as even maybe a little bit of team building exercises and those types of things. So more to come on that as we discuss some timing of it and kind of get out in front with that. So good stuff. So Clay, do you have any further direction that you need on this input and discussion item?
I appreciate the extra time. John, Eric, is there anything open that you need clarity on right now?
No, sir. I think
No,
what
sir.
we'll do is take this as a follow-up and get an updated list out with a couple of the changes we heard tonight from council.
Great.
Okay. So moving on to new business item number 3, Mr. Perez, could you put that on the table?
Absolutely, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, resolution number R 2020-255. So moved.
Second, Moore.
So we have a motion and a second in for staff.
Sure, Mayor. This just to explain, this is a important formality of calling the runoff election for the 2 council member positions, and the dates are set for Tuesday, December 15th, in the early voting. Ms. Rones worked with Brazoria County. It will be administering that for us, and we will be ready to run. Just one thing, I think, if I not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but we're looking at a canvassing 2 weeks after that on the 22nd, 1 week afterwards.
Right.
That's all.
All right. Any other discussion?
Well, it's going to be a fun and terrible Christmas for 2 people.
Good point. Good point. One quick question on that. So, Clay, I think you alluded to it, but I wanted to make sure I asked this question. So Brazoria County is 100% running this runoff for us. So, and maybe Ms. Roan can answer this question as well. So we won't have like voting locations or early voting locations in the other counties. They'll all be in Brazoria County. Is that correct?
Yeah, ask that, Crystal. It should be simpler, but Crystal, can you cover that?
That's absolutely correct. The only elections that will be held on December 15th will be municipal elections. So we are back to Brazoria County conducting our election for both Brazoria County and Harris County. Harris County and Fort Bend County.
Okay, well, that'll make it for these. That'll make it a little bit easier for these candidates that are running still, and that's good to know. So with that, Ms. Brown, why don't we call for the vote?
Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Little?
Aye.
Member Moore?
Aye.
The motion carries 6-0 to adopt resolution number R 2020-255.
Good deal. Moving on to new business item number 4. Councilmember Moore, can you put that on the table?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Consideration possible action resolution number R 2020-248. So moved.
Second.
Which one was that? Was that Little?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Staff report.
Thank you, sir. Items 4 and 5 are both renewals of existing contracts, and that's for disposal of byproduct from our solid waste operations. One's called the wet material, another one's a dry, but essentially we take these to appropriate landfills or other places that they can be spread and disposed of properly. So both these firms have performed for us well and recommend your renewal. But the first one's with Magna. They're the go-to in the area for that, and about 482,000 estimated. Thank you, sir.
All right, open for discussion.
On that item 4 there, Clay, I guess it was bid, or had 3 responses and didn't see the bids on it, but it increased $120,000 over the last 2 years. Is there a reason for that, or what?
So it's a renewal. So it's it was bid out back then. So that's why. And it's our plants and our operations growing. As you know, the reflection bay is online now. So it would be expected there's more product.
Okay. And MagnaFlow is the one that's doing that project, that for us, I guess.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, Ms. Roan will call for the vote.
Member Moore?
Aye.
Member Perez? Member Owens,
Aye.
Member Orlando,
Aye.
Member Carbone,
Aye.
Member Little.
Aye.
The motion carries 6-0 to adopt resolution number R 2020-248.
All right, moving on to new business item number 5. Councilmember Little, would you put that on the table?
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, resolution number R 2020-247. So move.
Second, Moore.
We have a motion and a second. Staff report.
Nothing more to add other than this, the complement to the item you already approved, the other part of the disposal.
Ditto. Ditto. All right. Any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, Ms. Roan, can you call for the votes?
Member Little,
Aye.
Member Moore,
Aye.
Member Perez, Member Perez,
Aye.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Member Perez.
Aye.
Thank you. Member Owens,
Aye.
Member Orlando,
Aye.
Member Carbone.
Aye.
The motion carries 6-0 to adopt resolution number R 2020-247.
Good deal. Moving on to new business item number 6. Councilmember Owens, would you put that on the table?
Sure. Consideration possible action resolution number R 2020-249. I so move.
Second, Moore.
We have a motion and a second. Staff review.
Thanks, sir. So as we are in the new fiscal year, we have budgeted fleet replacements that's been alluded to, and we are doing our level best to make progress in keeping up the fleet and identifying the pieces of equipment that need replacement. And so very pleased that able to participate in this cooperative purchasing with TIPS. And so we got 33 vehicles that were budgeted, a lot of police vehicle replacements, but other equipment, and just under $1.5 million. Nothing to add.
Okay. Open for discussion. Questions from council?
I've got one question for Clay. Clay, on this one and the vehicles, and then we go out to auction the other vehicles off. Does that go in our motor pool fund? The money comes back in?
Yes.
I didn't hear you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I just wonder if it came back in that, since that's a new account, that those are auctioned off and it comes back in the motor pool account.
Was that it?
That's it.
All right. Any other questions or comments from council? With that, Ms. Roan, would you call for the vote?
Member Owens,
Aye.
Member Orlando,
Aye.
Member Carbone,
Aye.
Member Little,
Aye.
Member Moore,
Aye.
Member Perez.
Aye.
The motion carries 6-0 to adopt resolution number R 2020-249.
All right, good thing. And new business number 7 was moved forward earlier. We're into item number 9, mayor council issues for council discussion, city council discussion. Have none. 10, other business. There is none. Move to item number 11, adjourn. And with that, I'll call the meeting adjourned.
Happy
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
Say again.
Happy
Thank you.
Thanksgiving, everybody. Bye.